No matter whether you're studying literature or engineering, people joke that everyone eventually ends up running a fried chicken restaurant and wiping out the entire chicken bloodline. Our female lead, Youngsa, is no exception. After working herself to exhaustion through years of studying, she suddenly finds herself operating a chicken shop. Meanwhile, some adventurers arrive and become completely confused. They clearly remember that not long ago this location was a dungeon gate, yet now a chicken restaurant is standing there. They start questioning their own memories. After all, that gate had been ranked A-class, and clearing it should have been impossible unless someone was ridiculously powerful. Convinced something strange is happening, they begin wondering if they're hallucinating. In their panic, they decide the building should be destroyed before it somehow transforms back into a dungeon full of monsters, dinosaurs, or giant chickens. The two charge forward, yelling that this time they'll definitely conquer it. Unfortunately for them, the only thing waiting inside is a group of ordinary people peacefully eating dinner. No matter how many times they look around, it is undeniably just a chicken restaurant. One of them still refuses to trust what he's seeing and prepares to attack anyway. Before he can make a move, however, he's already flat on the floor. Standing nearby is Youngsa, casually asking whether they'd like a table for two. It becomes obvious that somebody has already cleared the dungeon. Trying to save themselves from embarrassment, the pair awkwardly say they'll take a look at the menu. The menu reveals that the restaurant serves only chicken, so they order fried chicken, since there isn't much else to choose from. In less than 10 seconds, the food is ready. At that speed, you'd almost worry it wasn't cooked properly. The two are skeptical at first, but the instant they take a bite, their eyes go wide. It's as if they've been transported to another dimension. Immediately afterward, they start apologizing to the other adventurers for causing trouble. Word spreads quickly, and before long, a massive line forms outside the restaurant. Youngsa's chicken shop becomes incredibly popular. It is the only restaurant located inside such a dangerous dungeon, and for the first time in ages, she genuinely feels satisfied. She experiences a level of happiness she has never known before. Then, despite all of that success, she ends up bankrupt only 2 weeks after opening. At this rate, the business won't even survive another couple of days. Youngsa can't understand what's going wrong. The food is amazing, so that can't be the issue. Eventually, she blames a competing business called Hell Chicken. The reason that rival is attracting customers so quickly is because their marketing is far better. Even people who were desperately craving Youngsa's chicken just yesterday have started going there instead. Betrayal. Youngsa is furious because some of those customers had sworn they'd keep supporting her restaurant no matter what happened. She finally reaches her limit. Tossing aside her apron, she decides to uncover the secret behind Hell Chicken's success. She heads to the rival restaurant and walks inside. The moment she enters, she's stunned. The entire place looks less like a chicken shop and more like a giant nightclub. Lights flash everywhere while music blasts through the building. She honestly can't decide whether she's inside a restaurant or a dance club. Apparently, even the chicken might be working as the DJ. A waiter approaches and politely asks whether her seat is comfortable and what she'd like to order. Youngsa simply points at what everyone else is eating and asks for the same thing. The dish is called Hellfire New York Chicken. 4 hours later, the meal finally arrives. At that point, it feels as though they personally raised the chicken from an egg before serving it. The plate is set in front of her, but there's one problem. The chicken still has eyes. Youngsa can't believe people are actually eating this. From her perspective, her own chicken is obviously superior. Yet the moment she takes a bite, everything changes. The flavor is incredible. It perfectly combines Eastern and Western influences, balancing sweetness and saltiness with unbelievable precision. After tasting it, she can no longer deny reality. She's been completely defeated. Then a voice behind her asks whether she finally understands. The speaker tells her that now she must realize she'll never be able to recreate that glaze, not even if she were reborn as a chicken herself. Youngsa turns around. The man standing there is the owner of the restaurant. His name is Poppy, and he's actually the Demon King. She is shocked that he's still alive. Poppy casually replies that she should have finished the job properly. He reminds her that he once promised to return when she reached the happiest point in her life. And now he has come back. His goal is simple: crush her through the power of his chicken restaurant. Youngsa stands there silently. For the first time in a very long while, she feels genuine anger burning inside her. For poor Youngsa, 2 centuries of endless battles have drained nearly every emotion from her heart. After fighting for 200 long years, her feelings have become like a dried-up well, empty and lifeless from the passage of time. Yet at this very moment, something powerful stirs inside the hero once again. Her entire body shakes uncontrollably as a fierce storm of emotions erupts within her. That emotion is pure rage. To Youngsa, None of this changes anything. Her only goal is simple. She intends to kill him over and over again. Poppy, meanwhile, seems completely ready for another deadly confrontation and looks prepared for whatever comes next. However, Yongsa informs him that this encounter will not be like any of their previous battles. At last, the people gathered around recognize who she is. They realize that this woman is Yongsa, the famous right hand of the owner of that shop. The moment they understand that these two are about to face each other, excitement spreads everywhere. Everyone begins looking forward to witnessing what they expect to be an incredible showdown. Honestly, this is the kind of event where people would want to grab popcorn and enjoy the spectacle. Then the village chief steps forward and announces that this contest will determine who deserves to stand above the other. However, instead of a battle of swords or magic, it will be decided through food. Even Poppy finds the humans rather strange, yet he cannot help but enjoy the situation. With a mocking grin, he asks Yongsa whether she plans to flee or if she is actually going to accept the challenge. Back in the day, tearing apart the Demon King would not have been unusual for Yongsa, but she understands that things are different now. Since he is currently living among humans, openly killing him here would attract the attention of countless adventurers tasked with protecting the city. If the situation spirals out of control, she may be forced to meet certain people she has no desire to encounter ever again. Realizing there is no better option, she tells Poppy that if things have reached this point, then they will settle everything through this competition. The challenge is officially accepted. Some spectators are thrilled by the announcement, while others are convinced Yongsa stands no chance and will inevitably lose. Soon, the chief reveals the theme of the competition: seasoned chicken. He expresses his hope that both participants will perform well. The contestants are given only 2 weeks to prepare. Yongsa immediately becomes determined to destroy that ugly Demon King using nothing but her cooking skills. 2 weeks pass, and the day of the competition finally arrives in the restricted area of New Xiangnam City. Crowds gather and take their seats, ready to cast their votes once the judging begins. The energetic host appears to introduce the contestants. For some reason, it almost looks as though his hair is literally on fire, but nobody pays much attention to it. He proudly announces the first contestant, the Demon King, followed by the second contestant, Yongsa. Poppy becomes overwhelmed by the massive audience and wonders if these people believe some grand celebration is taking place. Yongsa calmly responds that none of it matters to her. The only thing she cares about is crushing him. Honestly, there does not seem to be a single normal person present anywhere in the venue. The host practically screams into the microphone as he announces that the competition is finally beginning. The judges and audience members are left completely stunned. The speed at which both contestants prepare their chicken is unbelievable. They move so quickly that it makes a Ferrari seem slow in comparison. Before anyone can even comment on their progress, both dishes are already finished. The judges decide to taste the Demon King's creation first. With complete confidence, he claims that a single bite of his chicken will transport everyone into another universe. Once the judges try it, they discover that it is incredibly delicious. The Demon King confidently licks his fingers, already convinced that victory belongs to him. However, before he can celebrate, attention shifts toward Yongsa's completed dish. There is one problem though. Once again, she has prepared her familiar style of fried chicken. Seeing this, Poppy bursts into laughter and jokes that perhaps this is her way of admitting she cannot cook anything different. Instead of reacting angrily, Yongsa simply smiles and politely asks the judges to give it a taste. The judges take a bite and are immediately shocked. They cannot believe how flavorful and distinctive the chicken is. Its taste is far beyond what they expected. Poppy stares in confusion and wonders what on earth is happening. Unable to contain his curiosity, he takes a bite himself. The moment the flavor reaches his tongue, his expression changes completely. He clicks his tongue and admits that this little girl is truly a troublesome person. Then he finally realizes the secret behind her dish. She had mixed the seasoning directly into the batter itself. Pulling out the ultimate Uno reverse card, Yongsa quietly remarks that she already knew the dish would turn out incredible. She proudly introduces her creation as nude seasoned chicken. The flavor is so outstanding that there is simply no way it should be considered inferior to the chicken prepared by Poppy. However, not every judge agrees. One of them immediately argues that Poppy's chicken is actually the tastier dish. Instead of reaching a unanimous verdict, the judges end up split between both contestants. Everyone has their own opinion, making it impossible to determine a winner right away. Watching all of this unfold, Poppy notices that Yongsa came far more prepared than he expected. Rather than being annoyed, he actually starts enjoying himself even more. The competition has finally become interesting. Both of these fierce rivals are now completely fired up because the real battle is only beginning. The host excitedly comments that it looks like both contestants have gone right back into cooking mode. Not wasting any time, Poppy immediately presents his next dish, a special jampong chicken. Yangsa responds by introducing her own creation, green mayo chicken. From there, the two of them continue producing dish after dish without slowing down. The judges are practically begging for mercy at this point. They complain that if this continues, they might literally explode from eating so much food. Unfortunately for them, neither contestant has any intention of stopping. The endless flood of chicken dishes continues, until finally, after another 30 exhausting minutes, the judges are at last released from their tasting duties. Even then, Poppy still has no idea who has actually won. The village chief then announces that the match was so close that the final decision will be left to the audience. Earlier, every member of the crowd had already sampled all the dishes prepared during the competition. Now all that remains is to reveal the voting results. Meanwhile, the host, who now looks significantly rounder after consuming an absurd amount of chicken, excitedly announces that the results will be revealed shortly. The audience eagerly waits to discover who will take home the winner's trophy. Finally, the announcement arrives. The champion is Bessie, Manhwa Tower, the god of chicks. Poppy nearly loses his mind on the spot. Wait, who in the world is that? Even the judges are shocked that neither Poppy nor Yangsa recognizes the name of the largest chicken franchise in the entire region. The chief decides it is time to educate them. He explains that God of Chicken is ranked as the #1 chicken establishment in the city. According to many customers, missing the chance to eat there feels like a tragedy itself. Then he reveals the most ridiculous part. The owner of that famous chicken restaurant is standing right here. As if that wasn't enough, it turns out that the chief and all 3 judges are directly connected to that very chicken business. Yangsa immediately develops a headache from the sheer absurdity of the situation. Meanwhile, Poppy cannot understand how these people were even allowed to participate in the competition when they never submitted an application. The chief casually asks him whoever said that the contest was only between him and Yangsa. If they had bothered reading the application form properly, they would have noticed that the event organizer, God of Chicken, was listed as a participant from the very beginning. Completely fed up, Poppy throws the ridiculous application form straight into the chief's face and demands to know what kind of nonsense operation they are running. The chief simply smirks. To him, Poppy looks like a sore loser who cannot accept the outcome. Still, the results were based on votes from over 90% of the audience, most of whom preferred the dishes from God of Chicken. Even so, Poppy refuses to acknowledge the verdict. The chief, acting like the king of staying unbothered, confidently states that Poppy will eventually come to terms with reality. However, the atmosphere suddenly becomes suspicious as tension begins building around everyone present. The Demon King finally snaps. Fine. If they want to play dirty, then he can do the same. He demands that they bring out whoever is truly in charge. At the same time, the chief orders his subordinates to remove both Poppy and Yangsa from the area. Without hesitation, Poppy launches himself directly toward the chief. Yet before he can reach him, his body suddenly freezes in mid-air, as though an invisible force has locked him in place. A man calmly steps forward. The mysterious figure is the one responsible for stopping the Demon King. He glances toward Yangsa and comments that he is seeing quite a few familiar faces today. With a casual smile, he asks whether everyone has been doing well since it has been such a long time since they last met. Yangsa immediately demands to know why he is here. The man casually points out that the Demon King specifically asked for the boss to come out. Since that request was made, he decided to appear personally. After all, he is the owner of God of Chicken, and his name is Shin. Poppy immediately fires back, shouting that it seems Shin is looking for another round. However, Shin couldn't care less. He dismissively replies that someone like Poppy, who already lost once, is nothing more than a bug in his eyes. According to him, they can settle their personal issues later because there is more important business that needs attention first. Without wasting another second, Shin turns his focus toward Poppy's chicken restaurant. Using a special spell, he casts magic over the crowd that is currently enjoying food from Poppy's shop. The moment the spell takes effect, the customers suddenly snap back to reality. As soon as they do, they begin gagging and vomiting simply from the smell coming from the food. The shocking truth is finally exposed. Poppy had secretly been relying on illusion magic the entire time, making people believe his food tasted far better than it actually did. Learning this instantly enrages Yangsa. She can't believe this tiny nuisance had the nerve to deceive even her. But Shin isn't finished yet. He reveals another secret, pointing out that it is against the law for the Demon King to remain outside the gate. On top of that, Poppy has apparently hired numerous illegal workers. Shin explains that Poppy kept recruiting them because he believed humans were too foolish to notice what was going on. To make matters worse, he even bribed the local chief to keep everything hidden. Then Shin casually asks Poppy whether he remembers the building contract he signed. The question catches Poppy completely off guard. He stares in disbelief, wondering how Shin somehow managed to get his hands on that contract. Shin calmly reminds him that one of the clauses clearly states that if Poppy is caught engaging in illegal activities, he immediately loses the right to stay there regardless of circumstances. Poppy refuses to accept it. He argues that Shin isn't even the owner of the building, so what authority does he have to enforce such a condition? He also complains that he never noticed any clause like that. A useful lesson here. Always read contracts carefully before signing them. With a smug smile, Shin informs him that perhaps he hasn't received the latest news yet. As of now, Shin himself owns the building. Therefore, Poppy no longer has any right to remain there and needs to leave immediately. Even after hearing this, Poppy stubbornly insists he isn't going anywhere. Meanwhile, Yongsa is thrilled. She believes this finally marks the end of the Demon King's schemes once and for all. Unfortunately for her, Shin immediately crushes that excitement by informing her that she must leave as well. Confused and furious, Yongsa demands an explanation. She can understand why Poppy is being kicked out, but she sees absolutely no reason why she should suffer the same fate. Shin then reminds her of a rather important detail she conveniently forgot. Her rent payment deadline passed over a year ago, and she hasn't paid a single coin since. At that moment, Yongsa recalls an encounter she had with Shin in the past. Back then, she admitted she had no money at all. Shin couldn't understand why she was willing to walk away after meeting a god. He repeatedly told her that, as a god, he could grant wishes and help solve her problems. According to him, she would eventually regret turning down such an opportunity. But Yongsa wasn't interested. Instead, she questioned why he was trying so hard and bluntly stated that he looked far too pathetic to be a god. Before leaving, she wished that the two of them would never cross paths again. Returning to the present, Shin coldly scoffs. Since she rejected his blessing all those years ago, he says their relationship has only gone downhill. To him, she is nothing more than an insignificant human. The guy really knows how to hold a grudge. After finishing his speech, Shin tells both of them that if they understand the situation, they should start packing and leave. Yongsa reluctantly tells Poppy that they should gather their belongings. Poppy looks betrayed. He reminds her that they were supposed to be comrades. Yongsa couldn't care less. She says friendship means nothing if someone is taking away her business. She then asks if he feels the same way about losing his own shop. Unexpectedly, Poppy starts laughing. To him, the restaurant is the least important thing right now. The only thing occupying his mind is getting revenge on Yongsa. He seems to be enjoying himself more than ever, as he calls for his followers. According to him, it's time to celebrate Yongsa's retirement at God Chicken Shop. While he continues talking, he suddenly feels himself being pulled. Before he can react, Yongsa grabs him and hurls him directly toward Shin with incredible force. Shin simply flicks a finger. A dimensional portal instantly opens, and he casually throws Poppy far away as if he were garbage. He then points out that while he may not excel in direct combat, he possesses plenty of tricks capable of bringing powerful opponents down. Not backing down, Yongsa glares at him and demands that he hand over the contract. Shin merely shrugs and says that if she wants it so badly, she is welcome to come and take it herself. Meanwhile, Poppy is still screaming in frustration. He complains that the two of them keep dragging him into their arguments and swears he will never forgive either of them. Unfortunately for him, the moment he says that, Yongsa stomps directly onto his head again. The entire area turns into chaos. Buildings crumble while Yongsa and Shin continue chasing and fighting one another. At one point, Shin takes out his divine pen, an artifact capable of making wishes come true. He remarks that things would have been much easier if Yongsa had simply made a wish. Instead of listening, she launches a kick straight at him while telling him exactly what she thinks of that idea. The attack comes dangerously close, and Shin barely manages to defend himself using the god pen. Still furious, Yongsa sarcastically responds that if he wants her to make a wish so badly, then he should simply turn her into a god. Immediately afterward, she smacks the pen away. She then grabs Shin by the collar and makes her feelings perfectly clear. Rather than becoming a god and spending time with someone as annoying as him, she would rather stay with someone like the Demon King. A grin slowly appears on Shin's face. He asks whether she realizes what she just said. Did she just wish to remain together with the Demon King until all her debts are repaid? According to Shin, that sounds like a very interesting wish indeed. Suddenly, the divine pen activates. A brilliant light engulfs everything around them. When Yongsa finally regains her vision, she immediately notices something strange attached to her wrist. Confused, she starts pulling on it. Only then does she discover the shocking truth. The other end of the restraint is connected directly to Poppy. The two of them have literally been handcuffed together. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the chaos they caused during their fight ended up destroying both her building and Poppy's building as well. As a result, the situation becomes even worse than before. Not only are they already drowning in debt, but now they are also responsible for paying for all the massive property damage they just caused. Poppy can't make sense of any of this. Honestly, his expression right now is the same look I have whenever I try to understand a physics lesson. After all, he was originally destined to become the Demon King, the ruler of curses, the sovereign of countless dimensions, and a being whose plans were always supposed to unfold perfectly. Everything in existence was meant to move according to his will, but then Yongsa entered his life and completely shattered that destiny by defeating him. The humiliation hit him so hard that he somehow ended up running a chicken restaurant instead. Now even that dream has fallen apart. At this point, the only thing Poppy truly wants is to return to his homeland. Unfortunately, fate seems to have different plans, because from now on he and Yongsa are tied together as a single package. A moment later, they notice the chains connecting them beginning to disappear. Poppy's eyes immediately light up. Thinking he has finally been freed, he takes off running as fast as he can. Maybe there is still hope after all. But reality quickly smacks him in the face. The chains suddenly reappear. It turns out the restraints activate whenever the two are separated by more than 100 meters for too long. Yongsa lets out a tired sigh and reminds him that she already explained this earlier. They are stuck together now, and all he can really do is cry about it. Elsewhere, inside a dangerous monster territory, there exists a powerful avian species. The creature is a massive, falcon-like monster of enormous size. Within this region, the beast has no natural enemies. It sits comfortably at the very top of the food chain and dominates the entire area as the ultimate predator. Meanwhile, Yongsa and Poppy have finally collected the meat they needed and are heading back to continue running their business. More than 200 years have passed since the dimensional conflict. The surviving major cities such as Seoul and Busan remain protected. Areas surrounding the Black Gates, where monsters constantly emerge, have developed significantly and become highly advanced. However, the farther someone travels away from these secure zones, the more dangerous the world becomes. What's truly surprising is that Yongsa and Poppy decided to open their shop in one of these dangerous regions. As a result, their customer base consists mostly of ruthless hunters, wandering outlaws, and various rough individuals who make a living in hazardous territories. While working, they hear an emergency news report. According to the broadcast, a new species of monster has appeared after arriving inside a meteorite. These creatures resemble jellyfish and survive by using humans as hosts. The two barely pay attention. After all, what are the chances of such creatures showing up all the way out here? Then again, considering where they live, maybe that thought wasn't very smart. Yongsa casually comments that maybe she should just eliminate them if they ever appear. Nearby hunters start discussing why the restaurant has so few customers. Honestly, the answer is pretty obvious. Who would willingly travel into such a dangerous location just to eat? Before long, one of the customers calls for the owner. Yongsa walks over and asks what he wants. The man throws his food down in front of her and complains that it tastes terrible. He demands another serving and then shamelessly suggests she could spend time with him instead if she prefers. Yongsa responds with complete calmness, saying that neither option is likely to happen. Meanwhile, Poppy is busy thinking about his own problems. If he wants to regain his former strength, he needs to return to the demon realm. To accomplish that, he first has to find a way to break these chains, binding him to Yongsa. Unfortunately, business isn't helping. The lack of customers means they aren't making money, and because Yongsa tends to terrify everyone around her, their debt continues growing larger every single day. Poppy notices that things were much better when they operated closer to the city center. There were far fewer troublesome people there. However, after reading reviews and comments about their current restaurant, he realizes his dream of returning to the demon realm is becoming increasingly impossible. Back at the counter, the annoying customer becomes offended. He asks Yongsa whether she has any idea who he is. Without even blinking, she tells him she doesn't care in the slightest. The customer becomes furious. Fine, if that's how she wants to play it, he'll call all his companions. Soon, his comrades arrive, and they happen to be the newly discovered jellyfish monsters. At first, Yongsa wonders if perhaps he's helping bring in additional customers. Sadly, that isn't the case. The monsters immediately charge toward her with hostile intentions. Unfortunately for them, one punch is all it takes. The next thing anyone knows, the creatures are embedded in the ceiling. Poppy instantly starts yelling. According to him, Yongsa has once again turned the entire place into a disaster zone. More importantly, who exactly is supposed to pay for all this damage? Yongsa simply looks depressed. At this rate, she isn't going to receive any payment this time either. Then again, she was never really getting paid in the first place. The defeated jellyfish creatures become enraged. They begin wrecking everything around them, smashing furniture and causing destruction throughout the shop. Seeing the damage increase by the second, Poppy starts squeezing the monsters and threatening them to stop before he decides to kill every last one of them. To be fair, he was already considering bursting them apart anyway. As he watches the situation unfold, Poppy sarcastically remarks that the customer seems to be trying to call for his jellyfish mommy. The joke doesn't age well. A massive shadow suddenly crashes through the roof. Something enormous descends from above and snatches Poppy before anyone can react. The giant creature is unlike anything they've seen before. It's a gigantic mother jellyfish. Even experienced hunters have never encountered a specimen this large. Dangling helplessly in the air, Poppy quickly changes his attitude. He politely explains that if his earlier comments offended her child, then he sincerely apologizes and would like to resolve things peacefully. Sadly, the giant jellyfish has absolutely no interest in listening. Before he can finish talking, she swallows him whole. Things immediately become worse. Communication systems begin failing, making it nearly impossible for nearby hunters to contact reinforcements or request assistance. Then they suddenly remember something important. Yongsa is still inside the restaurant. Worried, they rush back toward the building. However, upon arriving, they discover that Yongsa is nowhere to be found. The only things left behind are defeated jellyfish monsters scattered throughout the area. Moments later, they locate her. Far from being scared, Yongsa is already screaming at the giant jellyfish mother. Her biggest concern isn't getting attacked. She's furious because the creature had the audacity to threaten her business. A saying once claimed that if a person takes 1 or 2 lives, they are labeled a murderer. But if they wipe out millions, they are celebrated as a hero. 2 years have now passed, and people everywhere praise Yongsa as the savior of the world. Ironically, almost everything she once despised protecting has vanished from existence. The only thing left in her life is the chicken shop she treasures. As she walks away from the jellyfish creature, a chain suddenly appears about 100 meters away. Yongsa begins dragging the chain around, forcing the poor jellyfish to stumble back and forth in every direction. The bizarre sight becomes entertainment for everyone watching nearby. After playing with it for a moment, she gives the chain a powerful pull before slamming it into the ground, completely destroying it. At the same time, Poppy is finally released. Poppy finds himself standing some distance away from the shop once again. It almost looks as if Yongsa has been enjoying some donuts in the meantime. The jellyfish comments that it has been quite a long time since he last appeared in this form. Moments later, he returns to his original appearance, and his identity is revealed. His name is Aurelia, the king of the Milky Way. For thousands of years, Aurelia had remained asleep. The moment he awakens, he grabs Poppy and questions whether this is the brat who dared disturb his slumber. He explains that he only came to this tiny planet in search of lunch and never expected to encounter someone powerful enough to crack open his shell like Yongsa did. However, Aurelia suddenly pierces Poppy with his tentacles. He remarks that Poppy feels strangely familiar, as though his aura resembles someone he knows, yet he appears unbelievably weak. Because of that, Aurelia decides he might as well eat him. To his surprise, Poppy simply starts laughing. Not only is he still alive, but he even smirks, and tells Aurelia that if the attack had landed slightly more to the side, it might actually have killed him. Before Aurelia can react, a blast of light strikes him. When the dust settles, Poppy has broken free from the tentacles, and Yongsa is standing there as well. Poppy immediately complains, asking why she chose to arrive only now. He tells her that if anything had happened to him, she should remember that she would have gone down with him too. Meanwhile, Aurelia is completely baffled. Throughout his entire life, he has encountered countless monsters, yet Yongsa feels different from all of them. He cannot understand why someone like her is making him feel fear. Determined to eliminate her, Aurelia unleashes the entirety of his subspace ability, a power capable of swallowing an entire planet. Yongsa appears to be trapped within it, seemingly destined to be erased in less than a minute. Yet instead of panicking, Yongsa casually complains about how sticky everything is. She warns Aurelia that if he does not let her go immediately, she will kill him. Aurelia cannot believe his power is having absolutely no effect on her. Deciding to change tactics, he plans to absorb all available nutrients first in order to strengthen his digestive system. As the surrounding citizens watch in horror, they begin shouting and wondering what is happening. Aurelia boldly announces that he intends to make the entire city disappear, together with Yongsa. But before he can accomplish anything, Yongsa counts to 3 and bursts out of the sticky shell, shattering it completely. Then, with a single attack, she overwhelms Aurelia. Before finishing him off, she warns him never to interfere with her business again. Even Aurelia himself cannot believe that he is defeated so effortlessly. Poppy then looks at the massive magic stone left behind and complains that despite Aurelia's enormous size, the stone is disappointingly small. Instead of keeping it, they feed it to the debt collector creature. The creature devours the entire stone without hesitation. As it turns out, this being is the very entity that Yongsa and Poppy owe money to. It even accepts diamonds as payment. Unfortunately, even after consuming such a valuable stone, their remaining debt still stands at 9,101,000,000,000 and 400,000,000. Poppy lets out a groan, realizing there is no possible way they can pay off such a ridiculous amount before the end of time. About 10 minutes later, someone is observing the area through a pair of binoculars from a distance. He urgently calls for the president. This individual works under Joseph, the president of the Hunter Association. Joseph asks his subordinate what exactly he is trying to report, but the man seems hesitant to say it aloud. At the Vatican, another man attempts to wake Viola. She immediately tells him not to disturb her, unless the world is literally ending. The man quickly informs her that the pillar of light she had been talking about has finally appeared. Hearing those words, Viola immediately peeks out from beneath her blanket and asks exactly where it showed up. No cap. Poppy suddenly finds himself inside an incredibly realistic dream. In the dream, a mysterious figure urgently begs him to save the world. He sees countless people placing their hopes on him, believing that he is the one destined to rescue everyone. The unknown man continues speaking and asks Poppy that if he truly wishes to help, then could he first cook this chicken? Poppy immediately agrees, saying that he will rise to the challenge and prepare the chicken himself. Unfortunately for him, the dream comes to an abrupt end. Poppy opens his eyes only to discover Yongsa yelling at him to get up and start preparing chicken. This gives everyone a chance to witness the daily life of the once mighty Demon King. Every morning begins the same way. He wakes up and starts cooking alongside Yongsa. By evening, he gets scolded by her before ending the day with his usual crying session. To put it simply, the former ruler of darkness has become nothing more than a pitiful, overworked chicken chef. One day passes. Then an entire week goes by. Soon 2 weeks have passed as well. Every single day follows the exact same miserable routine. Eventually, Poppy reaches his limit. In frustration, he slams a piece of chicken onto the table and announces that he refuses to continue living like this. Yongsa immediately stares at him and asks what exactly he is trying to say. Poppy explodes with emotion. He tells her that they never get any customers. Every day they spend their time preparing ingredients, yet they still cannot make enough money to reduce their debt. He shouts that he simply cannot endure this situation any longer. Yongsa calmly responds that she understands. After finally expressing everything bottled up inside him, Poppy closes his eyes. He believes he has spoken from the heart and is now ready to die without any regrets. Instead of attacking him, however, Yongsa casually pulls out her phone. The news report on the screen explains that because of the increasing monster activity, people now prefer ordering food delivery instead of dining at restaurants. Yongsa points at the report and tells him that delivery services are the current trend. Poppy immediately points out the obvious flaw. Even if delivery is popular, who exactly is going to make the deliveries? The two of them cannot move more than 100 meters apart from each other. Yongsa tells him not to worry, because she already solved that problem yesterday. She proudly reveals that she put out recruitment flyers for workers. According to her, everything is already under control. Poppy takes one look at the flyer and starts shouting again. He cannot believe she seriously expects someone to apply for this job. He points out that there is no salary negotiation. The conditions are terrible, and anyone with common sense can immediately tell that she would be a nightmare employer. He asks who in the world would willingly come to work at a place like this. Without saying a word, Yongsa opens the door. To Poppy's complete shock, an enormous crowd is standing outside waiting for the interview. An entire army of applicants has actually shown up. Poppy begins wondering whether everyone in the world has collectively lost their minds. As he looks closer, he notices that many of the applicants are hunters. Even Yongsa's hunter acquaintances have appeared to apply. Poppy comments that these weird idiots must seriously have nothing better to do with their lives. As ridiculous as it sounds, that assessment is completely accurate. There was once the era of heroes. After that period ended, the strongest individuals became known as hunters, leading society into the hunter era. Because the dimensional war had concluded, overall danger levels had decreased dramatically. There were far fewer emergencies requiring hunters to take action. At the same time, another phenomenon began rising in popularity: internet broadcasting. Gradually, hunters became less like warriors and more like people desperately seeking attention. Many of them acted like heartbroken emo boys searching for an audience. As a result, this absurd job interview had become less of an employment opportunity and more of a public entertainment event. Youngsa then announces that the official interview process is finally about to begin. Every participant receives a headband. She explains that the recruitment test consists of 3 stages. First comes the physical examination. After that is the personality evaluation. Finally, there will be an executive interview. Only the first 6 participants who successfully clear the physical challenge will be allowed to continue. The contestants get ready to start, only to realize that one of the applicants is literally a dinosaur. The race begins, and everyone starts running forward. However, they quickly discover that the course includes obstacles as well. 2 hunters mock the dinosaur, wondering whether it seriously believes it can clear the upcoming obstacle. To their complete surprise, the dinosaur easily jumps over it. Not only that, but while airborne, it also manages to burst both of their balloons, instantly disqualifying them from the competition. The dinosaur then charges toward another hunter. That hunter barely manages to dodge the attack. Unfortunately, the impact is redirected toward the mysterious cloth-covered participant instead. Now all 3 contestants are engaged in a chaotic battle, each attempting to pop the other's balloons first. Meanwhile, Poppy watches the entire spectacle with genuine enjoyment. The dinosaur, the hooded figure, and the gloomy participant eventually end up facing one another directly. The dinosaur threatens them, demanding that they allow him to pop their balloons before he decides to pop their heads instead. The hooded contestant immediately objects, claiming that threatening people was supposed to be his line. He then proposes a new strategy. According to him, they should work together and eliminate the gloomy guy first. Before any of them can put that plan into action, Youngsa interrupts the competition. She announces that a brand new obstacle is now being added to the course. That obstacle is none other than a gigantic falcon. Everyone can tell they're completely terrified. The falcon unleashes another breath attack, and it's obvious there isn't any realistic way to beat this tiny nightmare. At this point, the smartest plan is simply to get as far away from it as possible. Dino wonders if they should just contact headquarters and ask for reinforcements because the situation is spiraling out of control. Suddenly, the gloomy-looking hunter pulls out an item from nowhere and hurls it straight at the falcon. The others immediately start whisper shouting at him, asking if he's lost his mind and trying to make the giant bird even angrier. Another one snaps at him as well, basically warning that if this stunt gets everyone killed, he'll be the one responsible. As it turns out, the item he threw was a sonic grenade. The moment it detonates, the falcon lets out a painful screech. Apparently, the creature is extremely vulnerable to loud sounds. It almost looks like this oversized bird spent its childhood blasting music through headphones 24 hours a day. Without wasting another second, the gloomy hunter takes off running in a completely different direction. Dino quickly notices that he's heading toward the finish line and a nearby patch of forest that could serve as a hiding place. What confuses everyone is how this guy even knew that location existed in the first place. Sadly, the falcon recovers much faster than expected. It immediately launches flames toward them, filling the entire area with smoke and fire. By the time the smoke finally disperses, only 3 hunters remain anywhere close to the finish line. One of them immediately takes out his phone and begins live streaming. He proudly boasts that they're probably the only participants who managed to survive long enough to reach this point. Then, out of nowhere, the gloomy hunter suddenly appears behind him and tells him to keep quiet unless he wants to become the falcon's next meal. The group hides as carefully as possible, while the live streamer is already imagining the amount of attention and views this footage could bring him. Truly, the content creator mindset works in mysterious ways. The viewers watching the stream are having the time of their lives, but the hunters themselves are far less enthusiastic. Their situation becomes even worse when they realize the falcon has located them once again. Everyone immediately starts yelling that they need to run, but deep down they know they're probably out of options. It feels like the only thing left to decide is what color they want their coffins to be. Then something completely unexpected happens. The falcon suddenly turns around and flies away. Nobody understands why it left so abruptly. However, the gloomy hunter seems to know exactly what's happening. The bird isn't retreating randomly, it's escaping from someone. That person is none other than Youngsa, who arrives looking like the final boss of the entire event. Youngsa calmly announces that the 6 remaining survivors have successfully passed the physical examination and will now proceed to the interview stage, where their personalities will be evaluated. The candidates soon notice that both Yongsa and Poppy are present and ready to conduct the interviews. Naturally, everyone immediately starts complaining about the so-called fitness test, arguing that it felt less like an exam and more like an assassination attempt. The interview rules are surprisingly simple. All they have to do is remain inside a designated circle during the questioning process. Most of them assume this part will be easy. That assumption doesn't last very long. One candidate suddenly feels an overwhelming pressure radiating from Poppy. The sensation is so intense that it's difficult to describe. He takes one of the slips handed to him and begins reading it aloud, only for Poppy to interrupt and ask whether this is the first part-time job he's ever had. For some reason, the question instantly damages the man's pride. Judging from his expression, he takes it as a personal insult and actually attempts to attack the Demon King himself. As expected, that decision goes terribly. He gets smacked straight out of the interview line and is eliminated on the spot. After that, several other candidates begin arguing, refusing instructions, and causing scenes of their own. One after another, they remove themselves from consideration until only 3 people remain. With the preliminary phase complete, it's finally time for the executive interview. Yongsa informs them that they may ask any question they wish. There is only one restriction. Questions about salary are strictly forbidden. The hooded candidate steps forward and asks whether Yongsa has ever heard of the famous Moneybug Thompson. He then reveals a shocking piece of information. He's actually Jason, Thompson's younger brother, and he came here specifically to take revenge. Before he can continue his dramatic speech, Yongsa gives him a powerful slap. She has already figured out that he has absolutely no interest in the job itself. The hit instantly knocks him unconscious. Turning to the remaining 2 candidates, she asks if either of them has any questions. Both of them immediately decline. Meanwhile, Dino suddenly receives a phone call right in the middle of the interview process. While he's distracted, Poppy and Yongsa quietly discuss recruiting Dino, along with the girl who was live streaming earlier while ignoring the gloomy hunter entirely. Unfortunately, once Dino finishes the call, he explains that he'll have to withdraw from the selection process because his mother ordered him to come home immediately. Just like that, another candidate is gone. Now only the gloomy hunter remains. Yongsa informs him that he has officially been accepted. However, the gloomy hunter says he still has one final question. He wants to know why the Demon King is still alive. The moment he finishes speaking, he suddenly launches an attack at Poppy. Fortunately, Yongsa reacts instantly and intercepts him before the strike can land, shattering his sword in the process. After stopping the attack, she stares directly at him and demands to know exactly who he really is. Kang immediately realizes that something is seriously off. His ankle is throbbing with pain, and as Kang, the man trapped in an endless cycle of regression, he knows better than anyone when reality starts acting weird. For 5 years straight, he's been forced to relive the same timeline over and over. No matter what choices he makes, every single life ends the same way. He never survives beyond the age of 23. The reason is always identical. The 21 dimensions fall into ruin at the hands of the Demon King. Now, during his 15th regression, Kang notices that this timeline isn't matching the previous ones. The location is different, the timing is different, yet the important pieces of the puzzle are still present. Most importantly, the aura surrounding the Demon King feels noticeably weaker than before. For a brief moment, a dangerous thought enters his mind. Could this finally be the timeline where he defeats him? Maybe this is his opportunity to end everything once and for all. Unfortunately, reality quickly reminds him how ridiculous that idea is. Even in this weakened state, the Demon King could probably turn him into a stain on the pavement within seconds. Absolutely not. Kang decides he's nowhere near ready. His current priority should be escaping, gathering stronger equipment, and preparing for the future. Before he can make his getaway, however, a capture rope suddenly flies toward him. The attacker isn't Poppy, it's Dino. Kang lets out an exhausted sigh. So they've finally met. Seeing Dino here immediately raises another question in his mind. Is Dino working for the Vatican this time? Or is he affiliated with the Hunter Association? Dino calmly informs him that it appears Kang is still in the early phase of his regression cycle. If he cooperates and comes quietly, nobody needs to get hurt. Kang has absolutely zero interest in accepting that offer. If the Hunter Association gets hold of him, they'll probably strip away his abilities. If the Vatican catches him, he'll likely spend the rest of his life staring at prison walls. Needless to say, negotiations fail instantly. The two prepare to fight. Meanwhile, from a distance, Poppy and Yongsa are observing the entire situation. Poppy asks whether Yongsa already knew that Kang was a regressor. Yongsa casually replies that she had a pretty good idea. According to her, regressors release a distinct blue aura, whenever they reset their timelines. Based on experience alone, she has encountered plenty of them before. Poppy then asks what she intends to do with him. Youngsa responds with a grin. The answer is obvious. She's recruiting him. After all, a regressor should be excellent at making deliveries quickly. Then she glances toward Poppy and mentions that his position is about to become a lot more entertaining from this point onward. Poppy immediately looks confused. His expression practically screams, "Wait, why am I being dragged into this?" Elsewhere, Kang remains trapped by Dino. What frustrates him the most is that this timeline refuses to behave according to any of his previous experiences. For the first time in 15 regressions, he can't predict what's going to happen next. With no alternatives remaining, Kang decides to activate his emergency escape method. Hidden inside his mouth is a poison capsule that will trigger another regression if he uses it. Just as he's about to bite down, Dino shoves a piece of cloth into his mouth. Dino asks if Kang genuinely believed he'd allow him to reset so easily. He tells Kang that the situation should be obvious by now. The game is over. Resistance is pointless. Kang appears completely cornered. Then Poppy suddenly arrives out of nowhere. For reasons nobody can explain, he's dressed exactly like a cartoon burglar. Even Kang stares at him in disbelief. His expression practically says, "What kind of idiot have I encountered now?" Poppy proudly declares that he's here to rob them. Well, technically not them, mostly their money. So everyone should kindly hand over their wallets and cash immediately. A brief moment of silence follows. Kang begins questioning reality itself. Maybe the world wasn't destroyed by the Demon King. Maybe society simply collapsed because people like this existed. Dino responds with a calm, "I understand." However, he also points out that he still has responsibilities to complete on behalf of the Hunter Association. That's when he notices something important. Kang has vanished. Apparently, robber number 2 has already grabbed him and disappeared. Dino immediately gives chase and heads after Youngsa. Poppy warns him that taking another step forward is a very bad idea. Ignoring the warning, Dino activates one of his special techniques. The two instantly clash. Battle mode officially begins. Unfortunately for Dino, things don't go according to plan. His shell ends up cracking apart, and a small bird emerges from inside. The creature immediately flies off to report back to the president that the mission has failed. Meanwhile, Poppy eventually catches up to Youngsa and Kang. At this point, Kang's thoughts are spiraling out of control. Nothing about the current situation makes sense. Initially, he assumed Youngsa was merely a subordinate working under someone else. Now he's no longer convinced. Across all 15 regressions, this is the first time he has ever encountered her, and his instincts are practically screaming that she's responsible for the massive differences in this timeline. Determined to learn the truth, Kang attempts to ask who she really is. Unfortunately, Youngsa answers in the most Youngsa way possible. She swings a tree branch directly into his face. The impact leaves him seeing stars. A second later, everything goes black. When Kang finally regains consciousness, he immediately notices something horrifying. He's wearing a delivery uniform. Panic sets in instantly. He jumps up and starts demanding an explanation for whatever nightmare he's woken up inside. Youngsa casually informs him that it's simply his new work outfit. Starting today, he's officially a delivery rider. Kang completely loses his composure. His cries of despair echo through the area as he desperately protests. After surviving 15 regressions, countless deaths, and the destruction of entire dimensions, this is not how he imagined his character arc ending. Absolutely no part of his heroic regression journey was supposed to involve delivering packages. Kang feels like he has completely hit rock bottom. After spending endless hours making deliveries while constantly avoiding dangerous monsters on the road, he starts to believe that this might be the first regression where he dies from exhaustion rather than in battle. Honestly, he cannot even understand how things ended up like this. The whole situation feels absurd beyond belief. Wondering how he got dragged into such nonsense, the story flashes back to the events that led him here. At the time, Kang was practically yelling at Youngsa. From his perspective, she had basically kidnapped him and forced him into unpaid labor. He tells her that if this is how things are going to be, she might as well just kill him instead. Youngsa responds casually, saying it is not as if he had anything more important to do anyway. Kang immediately argues back, insisting that he does. After all, he has to defeat the Demon King and bring an end to the war. That is when Youngsa drops a shocking statement. She calmly tells him that the Demon King is already dead, and the war has already been settled. Kang freezes on the spot, completely unable to process what he just heard. The claim sounds so ridiculous that he starts questioning whether any of this could possibly be true. Even Youngsa appears puzzled by the situation herself, wondering why Kang still believes the Demon King is alive. Meanwhile, Poppy looks unusually sluggish. His expression gives off the feeling of someone who is only one step away from starting a pointless argument. Yangsa decides there is no point hiding anything any longer. Since they are all going to be working together, she believes Kang deserves to know the truth. She then proceeds to explain everything that has happened so far. According to her, a series of divine interventions led to their current circumstances. Now they are all working together, operating a chicken shop while desperately trying to clear an enormous debt hanging over their heads. Naturally, Kang finds the entire explanation impossible to believe. To him, it sounds like a ridiculous story someone invented on the spot. However, he also realizes that if they really want him to accept it, they will eventually have to provide evidence. As if fate itself wants to prove them right, a debt collector suddenly arrives carrying an official notice. The document clearly displays the horrifying amount they still owe. The moment Kang sees the total, his face drops. He quickly realizes that even if he lived through 15 more regressions, paying off such an amount would still seem impossible. He remembers Yongsa telling him earlier that if he refuses to believe their story, he should simply stay around and witness everything for himself. After thinking it over, Kang decides that remaining with them for now might be the smartest choice. At the very least, he can keep a close watch on both of them. Even so, he is already considering whether he should just trigger another regression and start over. While lost in thought, he suddenly notices both of his employers staring at him with incredibly strange expressions. The looks on their faces are unsettling enough to make him uncomfortable. Then they abruptly stand up and announce that they are heading out for a company dinner at Grandma's chicken shop. Kang immediately questions the idea. He cannot understand why a company dinner would involve eating fried chicken. The answer he receives only makes things sound stranger. They explain that they are visiting local restaurants to evaluate the competition and compare flavors. Kang points out that this sounds much more like market research than an actual company gathering. Poppy cannot help making a comment. He remarks that Kang is surprisingly difficult to like, and jokingly wonders whether they should have hired that dinosaur instead. Annoyed beyond words, Kang slams the door behind him and declares that he is going to the bathroom. The way he storms off makes it obvious that he is sulking. Not long afterward, someone calls out to Yongsa. The person who appears is none other than Grandma herself, the legendary figure ranked second in the food industry, and the woman responsible for teaching Yongsa how to cook. However, instead of greeting her warmly, Grandma immediately starts teasing her. She jokingly asks that if Yongsa truly learned under her guidance, then why is fried chicken the only thing she seems capable of making properly? The teasing strikes a nerve. In response, Yongsa ends up throwing a punch at Kang, who somehow becomes the unfortunate target of her frustration. Just then, one of the employees rushes over to the shop manager and reports that there is a serious issue. The manager quickly passes the information along to Grandma. Curious about the commotion, Kang asks what exactly has happened. Before anyone can properly answer, Grandma suddenly fires a gun right beside him, nearly causing him to jump out of his skin. She then reveals the reason for the panic. A treasured family heirloom, something that has been passed down through generations, has mysteriously disappeared. Grandma makes it crystal clear that nobody is leaving until the missing item is found. The atmosphere immediately becomes tense because the elderly woman looks more than capable of carrying out her threats. When she refers to the stolen heirloom, she is not talking about jewelry or treasure. Instead, she means her family's legendary secret recipes, which are kept hidden inside a special chamber known only to a select few. She explains that this secret room does not even have a visible entrance. To make sure nobody tampered with it, she personally monitored the area every day, using a unique surveillance device that automatically captured an image every 5 minutes. Grandma then reveals the latest photograph, which was taken only moments ago. The picture clearly shows evidence that the recipe has been taken. Kang immediately points at something else in the image and yells that the situation is much worse than simple theft, because there appears to be a human bone visible in the photograph. Instead of being concerned, Grandma smacks him and tells him to stop getting distracted by irrelevant details. Yongsa says they should inspect the hidden room directly to search for clues. However, the manager advises her to wait because professional hunters are already on their way and will break through the wall safely. Yongsa has absolutely no patience for that suggestion. Without hesitation, she marches over and destroys the wall, using nothing but her bare fists. Once they get inside, they discover that the bones are not human after all. Upon closer examination, they resemble chicken bones. This detail immediately points toward a very specific suspect. There is only one kind of individual who would pull off a trick like this: a necromancer. Among the many strange abilities necromancers possess, there is one spell that allows them to swap an item they are carrying with another object already in their possession. Based on the evidence, the culprit most likely created a golem using chicken bones and then exchanged a ring they were holding for the hidden recipe. That means the owner of the mysterious ring must be responsible. Hearing this, Grandma's intimidating expression becomes even scarier. She immediately announces that the Demon King should be the first person tested. Kang skeptically remarks that there is no way the ring would even fit him. Unfortunately for Kang, the ring slides onto his finger perfectly. The moment it fits, he realizes he has spoken far too soon. Grandma narrows her eyes and tells him that if he returns the recipe immediately, she will show mercy and leave him with only 3 broken legs. Kang desperately argues that he could not possibly be guilty because he spent the entire time with Youngsa. Looking for support, he turns toward her. Instead of defending him, Youngsa immediately agrees that he looks suspicious. The two quickly descend into another argument while Kang internally questions why he keeps ending up surrounded by complete idiots. As the chaos continues, the manager informs Grandma that the hunter they called has finally arrived. Grandma responds by telling him to summon an ambulance as well, because someone is probably going to need medical attention by the time this investigation is over. She also casually mentions that they may need help cleaning up a body afterward. At that point, Poppy raises a reasonable point. If they are seriously trying to identify the culprit, then everyone should be investigated equally. He suggests that the manager should show his hands as well. Grandma immediately agrees with the idea. Since the manager has been working closely alongside Kang this entire time, there is no reason he should be exempt from suspicion. When they finally check him, a shocking discovery is made. The manager is actually wearing the ring. Youngsa is completely stunned by the revelation. She says she trusted him all this time and never once doubted his loyalty. Grandma demands an explanation right away. Rather than answering, the manager suddenly swallows a performance-enhancing drug and makes a run for it. As he flees, he proudly announces that they have all been fooled. Once he starts using the stolen recipe, he plans to make a fortune and become incredibly wealthy. The moment he escapes, Youngsa gathers everyone together and declares that there is only one thing left to do. They are going after the thief and taking the recipe back themselves. Kang immediately questions the logic behind that plan. If they steal the recipe from the thief, does that not technically make them thieves too? Before anyone can answer, Poppy reminds him that recovering the recipe could dramatically help them reduce their massive debt. The effect is instant. The moment money enters the conversation, Kang's attitude changes completely. Suddenly, both of the perpetually broke idiots are overflowing with motivation. Their eyes light up with determination as they prepare to chase down the runaway manager and recover the valuable recipe no matter what it takes. The manager is overflowing with confidence, convinced that because he managed to secure the enhancement potion, nobody stands a chance of catching him now. Unfortunately for him, the broke crew has no intention of backing down. They are completely determined to surpass him and prove themselves to be even better thieves. As they chase after him, they keep yelling for him to return the recipe, acting as though it belongs to them in the first place. Meanwhile, Kang can only wonder why there never seems to be a single peaceful day in his entire life. While continuing to run, the manager finds himself confused. He cannot understand why the 3 of them are still moving around without any problems, when he is absolutely certain he mixed laxatives into the chicken earlier. The explanation is simple enough. Kang had already made a trip to the bathroom before all of this happened, and the Demon King is naturally immune to those kinds of effects. However, the laxatives have not failed completely. They are affecting Youngsa instead. Poppy notices that Youngsa is gradually falling behind and immediately asks what is wrong. Struggling to keep up, she admits that she simply cannot hold on any longer. A moment later, she suddenly turns around and sprints in the opposite direction at full speed. Poppy, who is still heartbroken and crying over the loss of his precious recipe, ends up getting dragged away with her and has no choice but to follow along. Watching this unfold, Kang quickly comes to the conclusion that the 2 of them are completely useless. The manager finally slows down and realizes that only the gloomy kid remains on his trail. Deciding to take action, he summons every skeletal minion at his disposal and proudly refers to them as his children. Kang lets out a weary sigh, already knowing that he is about to deal with something annoying. With a single attack, he obliterates the entire army of skeletons in an instant. Refusing to give up, the manager summons another wave of skeletons. Once again, Kang destroys every single one of them just as effortlessly as before. Having run out of better ideas, the manager starts throwing bombs in Kang's direction. At first, Kang assumes the explosives contain some kind of poison or dangerous substance. Instead, they release nothing more than thick clouds of smoke. By the time the smoke finally disperses, the manager has completely disappeared from sight. Kang sighs yet again, assuming that it looks like he will have to continue the pursuit by himself. However, before he can move on, he notices someone standing farther ahead. At the same time, the manager continues running and nervously thinks to himself that the gloomy kid is far more dangerous than he originally imagined. As he races forward, he suddenly finds himself at the edge of a cliff with nowhere left to go. Just then, he hears the voice of Grandma. She reminds him that there was once a time when she genuinely believed he was homeless and kindly took him in. Now, however, she declares that the time has come for him to answer for all of his sins. She makes this dramatic announcement while riding piggyback on the gloomy kid, who has finally caught up to the fleeing manager. The manager is still convinced that the others have become overconfident simply because they managed to catch up to him. He loudly insists that there is no chance they will ever get their hands on the recipe. However, that confidence immediately begins to crumble when Papi and Yongza finally arrive as well, leaving him completely surrounded with no obvious escape route. Realizing that he has been cornered, the manager decides there is only one option left. If he cannot run, then he will deal with all of them right here and now. Having made up his mind, he summons his dragon claw. Kang stares at it in confusion, wondering what on earth a dragon claw is even supposed to be. Even Grandma cannot help but yell that they should have sold that thing instead. Yongza watches everything unfold and thinks that somehow the situation keeps escalating into something much bigger than it originally was. Meanwhile, the manager points at them and shouts, calling them insolent fools. He declares that he is about to demonstrate the overwhelming gap in power between them. Papi squints at the sight and wonders whether that is supposed to be some kind of dragonborn, as he begins summoning his own power in response. A smug grin appears on his face, as he comments that it is so tiny he initially mistook it for nothing more than a chicken bone. At the same time, Kang yells at him, reminding him that they almost got roasted a moment ago. Grandma also remarks that purple flames do not seem like something ordinary at all. Meanwhile, the unfortunate manager is soaring through the air while desperately crying out about his wealth and glory. Yongsa immediately scoffs when she hears him talking about wealth and glory. She then casually pats Papi and suggests that they should try fishing for some wealth and glory themselves. Papi looks at her in confusion and asks why she is grabbing him. Without the slightest hesitation, Yongsa throws him forward and tells him to go catch that wealth and glory. Internally, Papi screams in disbelief, wondering what kind of ridiculous situation he has been dragged into. Grinding his teeth and realizing he has no alternative, he reaches out and attempts to grab the bottle. Unfortunately, instead of catching the bottle, he ends up grabbing the manager himself. The poor manager once again cries out dramatically for his wealth and glory. At that exact moment, Yongsa swings her chain and pulls both of them safely back down to the ground. While this is happening, Kang immediately starts asking where the recipe has gone. Yongsa turns toward Grandma and comments that at least they managed to catch him, which is a good thing, right? Grandma agrees that catching him is certainly good, but she quickly continues her rant. She complains that if that troublesome Papi had not lost her recipe in the first place, none of this would have happened. According to her, the situation has gone far enough, and now it is time for an execution. Meanwhile, the unfortunate Papi protests loudly. He insists that he was not the one who lost the recipe at all, and argues that the real culprit is the thief standing right there. Later on, the scene shifts to Grandma standing beside Yongsa. Grandma remarks that Yongsa seems to be traveling with quite a dangerous individual. Yongsa explains that there are certain circumstances involved. She describes it as something resembling in a joint adapter arrangement, essentially the kind of relationship where they live together, die together, and remain tied to one another no matter what. After hearing that explanation, Grandma begins to wonder whether the two of them are actually a married couple. With their business finished, Yongsa says goodbye and mentions that she will visit again another time. Meanwhile, Grandma reflects quietly to herself. She does not harbor any resentment toward Yongsa and believes that the girl is merely doing what she needs to do. Afterward, Grandma makes a phone call. Once someone answers on the other end, she comments that it has been quite some time since she last got in touch with them. She then instructs the person to connect her with the association president and tell him that she has something important she needs to report. Fried chicken is already delicious by itself, but the seasoning added on top can completely transform it into something special, creating countless variations. Despite that, one customer complains loudly, saying he is sick of eating nothing but fried chicken all the time. Frustrated, he asks why the shop only serves plain fried chicken and wonders why they do not offer any seasoned versions instead. A moment later, he turns his attention to Kang and asks if he came by himself today. He also asks what happened to Yongsa and the rough-looking guy who is usually with them. Kang briefly turns away before explaining that the two of them left because they wanted to work on developing a brand new menu item. The story then shifts to a forest, where a mysterious hollow passageway has appeared. Several people are gathered in front of the entrance. Standing nearby are some unusual-looking individuals, who who announce that the admission fee is 500,000. They bluntly state that anyone who cannot pay that amount should leave immediately. One of the soldiers quickly objects, raising his voice and asking how they can seriously be charging money like this. He argues that everything they are doing is completely illegal. The strange men respond by pointing out that the soldiers are only C-rank hunters, and ask what exactly they think they can do about it. The men then ask whether the soldiers have even looked at what lies beneath the gate. They explain that this is the very place where explorers are risking their lives. According to them, black gates all appear nearly identical from the outside, which means nobody can determine their rank until someone actually enters. Because of that uncertainty, countless guilds put their lives on the line by entering first, investigating the gate, and only afterward determining its rank. The men argue that, considering those risks, the entrance fee they are requesting is actually quite small. They then challenge the crowd by asking whether anyone present has a problem with that arrangement. The C-rank soldier refuses to back down and continues arguing. He reminds them that the Hunter Association has officially declared practices like this illegal. He warns them that if they are caught doing this, they should think carefully about whether the association president would really overlook it. At that exact moment, one of the suspicious men suddenly stomps his foot into the ground with force and shouts back. He asks whether the association president is actually closer than his fist is right now. Then, with a mocking grin, he ridicules the C-rank hunters, remarking that they certainly have a lot to say. With no alternatives remaining, the soldiers reluctantly pay the demanded fee. Moments later, the sound of movement comes from the nearby bushes. The two suspicious men immediately turn their heads and notice Poppy and Yongsa emerging from the foliage. Looking them over carefully, the pair comments that they do not recognize either of them and asks whether this is their first time visiting the area. Wearing cunning smiles, they announce that newcomers are required to pay a special admission fee of 1 million won. Before the conversation can continue, Yongsa steps forward without hesitation and delivers a sharp slap directly across one man's face. In her mind, she cannot understand why they alone should be charged such an absurd amount. The second man freezes in disbelief as he stares at his injured companion. His eyes widen dramatically, and he angrily demands to know whether Yongsa really thinks she can act like that without consequences. Yet before he can do anything else, he realizes that Yongsa has already walked into the black gate. Grinding his teeth in irritation, he quickly pulls out his phone and places a call. As soon as the person on the other end answers, he is asked what the problem is. The man practically begs for assistance, asking whether the target group is still inside the gate. He then declares that he wants to proceed with the unfinished request they discussed earlier. The voice on the other side calmly explains that the job will cost significantly more than before and asks if that is acceptable. The caller immediately responds that the price does not matter to him at all. The person receiving the request happens to be an A-rank hunter, who is also infamous for carrying out killings. Before ending the conversation, he warns the bald man that once the arrangement begins, there will be no opportunity to change his mind later. The story then returns to Yongsa, who scans the surroundings and wonders if they have truly arrived at the correct location. Poppy quickly reassures her, reminding her that he had already said this was the place. He explains that their neighbor, Mr. Lee, specifically told them they would find what they needed here. Without warning, a small object suddenly shoots through the air toward them at high speed. Poppy catches it and immediately realizes that it is a honeybee. The discovery excites both of them, and they begin celebrating enthusiastically. They understand that if they can locate the hive, they will finally have the key ingredient needed to create their newest menu item, bull honey chicken. Poppy carefully studies the surrounding area, searching every direction while wondering if the hive could be somewhere nearby. Just then, a man suddenly bursts out from a cave entrance. Terrified, he screams for help and desperately begs someone to save him. A moment later, an A-rank hunter calmly emerges from the cave behind him. Observing the situation, the hunter remarks that a few survivors are still left. His expression remains cold as he reflects that there is nothing personal about what he is doing. It is simply part of the business. Yongsa responds with complete indifference. She thinks that the matter has nothing to do with her, and casually asks whether he was responsible for killing all the people lying behind him. The A-ranker openly admits that he was. He explains that he accepted a request to eliminate them. He then adds that even without a contract, he personally believes that C-rank hunters are merely wasting oxygen by continuing to live. However, his focus suddenly shifts elsewhere when something unusual catches his attention. He pauses and stares toward a nearby wall, wondering whether someone has been drilling into it or damaging it somehow. Then his eyes widen as realization strikes him. He begins questioning whether the creatures he is seeing are actually storm bees. Although a single storm bee is only considered C rank, Their true danger emerges when their queen senses hostility. Once that happens, countless bees unite with a single objective, creating a terrifying swarm that resembles a living storm. The phenomenon is so destructive that many hunters refer to it as a storm of pure despair. Storm bees possess a natural instinct to target the strongest opponent in their vicinity. Realizing this, the A-rank hunter immediately wonders whether the swarm has detected his overwhelming aura. Internally, he curses in frustration, expecting an attack to come at any second. Yet what happens next completely catches him off guard. Rather than rushing toward him, the swarm changes direction entirely. The countless bees begin flying straight toward Poppy and Yongsa instead. Before the insects can reach their targets, a tremendous explosion suddenly detonates directly in front of them. The blast shakes the area and interrupts the swarm's advance. Poppy looks around in confusion, unable to understand who could have caused such an unexpected interruption. As the dust and smoke gradually clear, a figure slowly walks forward from the destruction. The mysterious individual turns their gaze toward Yongsa and quietly remarks that it has been a very long time since their previous meeting. The newcomer addresses her as the legendary hero who fought during the Dimensional War 2 centuries ago. Long ago, during the conflict known throughout history as the Dimensional War, warriors from countless dimensions gathered together under the leadership of that hero. Amid the chaos and destruction, humanity's most powerful organization, Nemesis, was established. Even though Nemesis possessed incredible strength and united many of the greatest fighters of the era, a serious issue always existed within its ranks. Despite serving the same cause, not every member respected the hero. In fact, many within the organization neither supported nor particularly liked the person leading them. Nemesis, the deity of retribution spoken of throughout ancient legends, was created for a single purpose. That very objective was the reason the strongest hero was gathered and given that title to bring vengeance upon the demon race. With that understanding, everyone finally realizes the identity of the man standing before them. He is the legendary Nemesis, humanity's greatest champion. Joseph lifts his weapon, the Heaven Splitter, and swings it downward. Instantly, the earth ruptures beneath him, leaving everyone present speechless. Even the air anchor can do nothing but stare in disbelief. The sight before them seems impossible. Splitting both the heavens and the land with a single strike should not be achievable. Yet it is not only the sky and ground that appear divided, everything standing in front of him feels as though it could be cut apart. Finally, Yongsa steps forward and asks the question on everyone's mind: is he truly Joseph? The scene shifts back 2 centuries. Yongsa is hard at work when someone approaches her and tells her to stop what she is doing and leave. He warns that if she keeps moving forward on this path, then the next time they meet, he will personally tear her apart and end her life. Remaining calm, Yongsa simply accepts his warning and tells him to do as he wishes. Returning to the present, she asks whether he has been doing well. Joseph immediately understands that she still remembers him. He states that the time has finally come to fulfill the promise he made all those years ago. Before carrying it out, however, there is one thing he needs to know. He asks if she truly betrayed them. If that is the truth, then he wants an explanation for why she chose to confront the Demon King. Yongsa firmly denies betraying anyone. Joseph continues pressing her for answers and places his sword against Poppy while demanding clarification for everything that has happened. Before matters escalate further, Poppy steps in and explains that there were circumstances surrounding the situation. Joseph scoffs at the explanation. The word circumstances means little to him. He recalls how the Demon King once mentioned a hero who had disappeared and become a traitor, questioning whether the 2 stories are connected. Poppy responds with a faint smile, pointing out that Joseph has already witnessed the answer with his own eyes. Their actions make it obvious. They have been protecting each other this entire time. Those words only deepen Joseph's fury. Once again, he swings the Heaven Splitter. The force of the attack causes the land itself to crack and split apart. Refusing to stay on the defensive, Poppy rushes forward. Yongsa immediately calls out to him, warning him not to do anything reckless and reminding him that he is still weak. Her statement immediately irritates Poppy. Brushing aside her concern, he insists that he is strong enough. Within this world, only 3 powers are capable of standing against monsters: martial arts, magic, and science. Normally, reaching the absolute pinnacle of both martial arts and magic at the same time is considered impossible. There has only ever been one exception: a heaven-blessed prodigy like Joseph. Joseph summons a directional magic sphere and launches it at Poppy. At first, Poppy dismisses it, assuming it is nothing more than ordinary low-level magic. However, the moment the attack connects, his expression changes. Before he can react, Joseph follows up with the 100 Steps Divine Fist. The devastating strike slams directly into Poppy's stomach, sending him hurtling into the ground at tremendous speed. At that exact moment, Youngsa appears from behind Joseph and attacks, telling him that he should have matured by now as she delivers a powerful kick. Yet Joseph has already anticipated her move. Instantly, he unleashes a high-temperature spell known as the Purgatory Flame. The blazing attack races toward Youngsa, but she narrowly avoids it and lands safely without suffering damage. After observing the battle, she quickly realizes that dragging the fight out will only work against her. This confrontation must be decided with a single decisive blow. Although hesitant, Poppy offers to assist her. Youngsa refuses without hesitation, convinced that she can defeat Joseph on her own. She understands his personality better than most. Joseph is straightforward by nature, and often provokes his opponents intentionally to create opportunities for himself. Poppy questions what truly makes Joseph so special, suggesting that perhaps there is nothing extraordinary about him at all. Hearing those words, Joseph immediately reacts and asks whether that is genuinely what they think of him. Declaring that he will finish everything with one attack, Joseph charges forward while raising his sword. Youngsa evades the incoming strike and rushes toward him as well, determined to settle the battle once and for all. In response, Joseph unleashes the Heaven Splitter again, this time releasing a slash capable of severing space and time itself. The two collide head-on. A tremendous explosion erupts across the battlefield, swallowing everything in its path. Poppy watches nervously from a distance, wondering whether Youngsa has managed to succeed. But within moments, his expression changes completely. His eyes widen as shock overtakes him. As the smoke gradually disperses, the result of the clash becomes clear. Youngsa stands motionless. Joseph's blade has pierced straight through her. Joseph coldly states that one enemy has already fallen, and that the others will soon follow her. As he begins to turn away, his attention is drawn to an unexpected sound. Poppy is laughing. The reaction immediately annoys him, and he asks whether Poppy has completely lost his sanity. Poppy quickly denies it. He explains that it has simply been a very long time since he experienced something this amusing. Then, with a grin, he asks Joseph whether he has developed dementia. After all, someone like Youngsa could never be taken down by an attack of that level. The comment causes Joseph's expression to stiffen. To his disbelief, Youngsa is standing there without a scratch. Casually, she remarks that the ketchup stain still refuses to come out, no matter how much she tries to wash it away. Then she asks Joseph whether he has suddenly developed a desire to die. Without hesitation, Joseph spins around and attacks once more. His sword cuts through the air toward her, but Youngsa effortlessly avoids the strike. Using her leg, she casually redirects the blade away from her. Looking at him, she comments that he has picked up quite an ambitious habit over the years. Joseph is stunned. In his mind, this situation should be impossible. Ever since the day he suffered that humiliation, he has dedicated every moment of his existence to becoming stronger. He has swung his sword countless times, enough to rival the stars scattered across the heavens. He has studied every magical text known throughout the world. For 2 entire centuries, his life has revolved around a single objective: surpassing Youngsa. Meanwhile, Youngsa simply remarks that he was much cuter back then. The statement instantly ignites his fury. He yells at her to stop talking. Anger overwhelms him, yet Youngsa remains completely calm. She tells him that every consequence he is facing now is the result of his own choices. As she begins gathering magical energy, something catches her attention. She suddenly notices the same strange sensation she felt earlier. The restraints locked around her wrists are steadily draining away her power. Even so, she dismisses the concern. Whatever restrictions the gods may have placed upon her are ultimately irrelevant. Joseph launches another attack. This time, he activates the Heaven Splitter's hidden technique, Crimson Night. Youngsa immediately rushes forward to meet him. Joseph is convinced the battle is over. Surely, not even Youngsa can endure this attack. Yet the outcome completely shatters his expectations. When the clash settles, Youngsa emerges without the slightest injury. Looking directly at him, she reminds him that he is not the only person who spent 200 years training. She has also continued growing stronger during that time, and unlike him, she has been fighting opponents far more terrifying than anything he has faced. She advises him not to take the loss too personally. A moment later, she closes the gap between them. Before Joseph can react, she drives an overwhelming punch straight into him. Far from the battlefield, panic begins spreading through the Hunter Association headquarters. An individual rushes toward the director and urgently reports that a massive energy eruption has been detected in the eastern region. The director immediately reacts. He shouts that the association president had been stationed at the Vatican. Another person quickly confirms the implication. There is no longer any doubt. The legendary hero has returned. The story then shifts back to Kang. Frustrated, he yells at everyone around him, demanding that they put at least some effort into their lives. He questions why they spend their days doing nothing, and wonders what possible excuse they have for being so lazy. He even asks why the association bothered recommending them and sending them there in the first place. At that exact moment, Youngsa proudly presents a brand new menu item. She announces that it is the honey beef chicken. Encouraging Kang to stop complaining, she tells him to taste it first before judging. Unfortunately, the moment Kang and Poppy take a bite, both of them instantly begin vomiting. Kang immediately storms over to Poppy and starts shouting. He accuses him of creating this entire situation simply so he could avoid doing actual work. Poppy refuses to accept the blame. He argues that none of this is really his fault. According to him, the real problem lies with the owner for creating food this terrible in the first place. He questions why Kang is directing his anger toward him instead. Watching the chaos unfold reminds Youngsa of her earliest days learning how to cook. Back then, many people told her that heroes no longer needed to concern themselves with cooking. Even a younger Joseph once warned her that if she ever touched cooking ingredients again, he would personally kill her. Despite those warnings and countless failures, she had eventually convinced herself that her skills had improved tremendously over the years. However, after taking a bite of the dish herself, she immediately starts vomiting as well. That reaction proves the unfortunate truth. Her cooking has not improved nearly as much as she believed. Elsewhere, Joseph is shown lying on the ground. As he stares upward, he wonders whether he has truly been defeated. A mysterious voice answers him. The figure calmly confirms that he has, in fact, lost. Joseph slowly rises and asks the stranger's identity. The mysterious individual introduces himself as God. He casually mentions that, at least for the moment, he is working as a chicken shop owner, although he claims that detail is ultimately unimportant. What truly matters, he explains, is a different question. He wants to know whether Joseph is willing to join forces with him. God reveals that he already knows Joseph's deepest desire to kill Youngsa. He then admits that he shares exactly the same objective. Proposing an alliance, God suggests that they work together. He promises to invest in Joseph, support him, and provide him with the means necessary to achieve his goal. He urges him to accept the power being offered and use it to accomplish what he has always wanted. Finally, God asks whether Joseph is willing to accept the deal. Joseph's answer comes instantly. Without a moment of hesitation, he unleashes his flames directly toward God. In Joseph's eyes, there are only two things worthy of acknowledgement: heroes and flies. God remains standing exactly where he is. The flames fail to shake him in the slightest. Looking at Joseph, he casually remarks that he possesses something of his own as well. A simple little puppy, one that still does not understand its proper place. At the headquarters of the Hunter Association, concern begins to spread, as several people notice that the president has still not appeared. Someone comments that he has not stepped outside today either, while whispers continue circulating throughout the building. Rumors are now gaining momentum that the association president may have died, leaving everyone wondering if such a shocking claim could actually be true. Inside the conference room, one of the guild leaders states that if that man had really passed away, they might as well say that the entire world had come to an end. Though people often describe him as unfortunate, he remains recognized as the most powerful human alive. The speaker is Carlos, the Green Deer Guildmaster and one of the leaders representing the 4 great guilds. The Blue Snake Guildmaster expresses his confusion, asking what in the world could be happening, and directs the question toward Camilla. Nearby, the White Tiger Guildmaster laughs off the rumors, dismissing them as little more than hopeful fantasies, yet even he finds himself wondering whether the president might actually be gone. The Golden Bear Guildmaster then speaks up, asking whether such a development would truly benefit any of them. As the conversation carries on, the atmosphere grows increasingly tense. Camilla quietly thinks to herself that the situation is extremely serious, and that locating him as soon as possible is now her top priority. The story then moves to the chicken shop. Youngsa informs a visitor that the store has not opened for business yet. A moment later, however, they realize that the person standing before them is Camilla, still wearing her distinctive outfit. Poppy welcomes her warmly, mentioning that it has been quite some time and jokingly asking whether she has come looking for a part-time position. Camilla wastes no time with small talk and says she will get straight to the matter at hand. To everyone's surprise, she suddenly kneels down and desperately asks for their assistance. She explains that the association president has disappeared and that she needs their help to track him down. Youngsa immediately questions her reasoning, pointing out that they are simply people who run a chicken restaurant. Camilla, however, reveals information that changes the tone of the conversation. She explains that Yongsa was captured on surveillance footage installed by the nearby Black Hawk Guild. According to her, ordinary chicken shop owners do not casually enter black gates merely to collect cooking ingredients. She further points out that there was a noticeable gap between the time they appeared on the CCTV recordings and the moment the president's energy signature vanished. Based on those facts, she has developed a theory. Camilla explains her conclusion. In her view, the president traveled alone to a C-rank gate located on the outskirts without bringing any escorts or attendants. If his power truly flared up before disappearing, it would strongly suggest that a battle took place there. The only people capable of surviving a confrontation against someone of the president's caliber would be the two individuals standing before her former members of Nemesis, the legendary hero team that dominated 2 centuries ago. Yongsa herself is one of those renowned figures. Regardless, with the president nowhere to be found, the Hunter Association, which serves as Neo Soul's largest military force, is now dangerously close to descending into chaos. The crisis has already reached emergency levels. Hearing this, Yongsa quietly wonders whether Joseph really possesses that much influence over the entire organization. Camilla then elaborates, explaining that the association in its current form has been sustained largely through the president's overwhelming strength. His presence alone kept the 4 great guilds restrained and prevented them from acting recklessly. Now that he has vanished, nobody can predict what individuals who have long desired greater authority and influence might attempt. Because the members of Nemesis are known for their extraordinary power, Camilla believes they are the only ones capable of helping in this situation. Despite her plea, Yongsa rejects the request without hesitation. She complains that the whole matter sounds troublesome, and then asks Camilla to take a good look at what she is currently wearing. Camilla studies her briefly and answers that it appears to be a standard chicken shop uniform. Yongsa immediately responds with emphasis, declaring that she is nothing more than a regular chicken shop owner. Her dream, she says, is simply to clear all her debts through the success of her business and eventually become a millionaire. Beyond that, she wants nothing more than a peaceful, ordinary, and comfortable life. Camilla pauses briefly before replying that neither a former Nemesis member nor a regressor seems particularly ordinary from her perspective. At that moment, Kang joins the discussion and points out that if she already knew he was in hiding, she should have mentioned it much sooner. Remaining calm, Camilla answers that she may have left out a few details. She then formally introduces herself as the acting president of the Hunter Association. Although her official assignment for the day involves carrying out local inspection duties, she reveals that she secretly altered her route and diverted from her mission for one specific reason: to provide treatment to the association president, who is currently on the brink of death. Without warning, a loud, crashing sound reverberates through the area, causing everyone to look up in surprise. They quickly discover that the roof has been completely smashed apart. The trio immediately starts complaining about how expensive it will be to repair the damaged ceiling, although Kang soon interrupts and asks whether fixing the roof is really the biggest concern right now. He urges them to focus their attention on the mysterious object that has suddenly appeared before them. Camilla explains that until the association president returns and re-establishes stability, true peace cannot exist. Once again, she offers Yongsa a substantial reward in return for her cooperation and presses her to make a decision regarding whether she will help. At the same time, a man riding inside a helicopter watches the events unfold from above. He questions why such an enormous force has been mobilized merely to deal with a chicken shop owner. Thinking back to the mission briefing, he recalls that the objective was to capture the targets alive. Even so, he expresses concern, noting that his subordinates have a tendency to use excessive force. He wonders whether they may have already killed the people they were supposed to apprehend, and requests an update from the corruption squad. Instead of receiving a calm and professional report, he is met with frantic coughing, terrified screams, and desperate voices claiming that they are fighting monsters. The man is stunned by the response and asks what they could possibly mean by that statement. Before he can process the situation, Yongsa and Poppy suddenly propel themselves toward the helicopter. Moving with incredible speed and strength, they strike the aircraft with overwhelming force and land a devastating attack. Camilla arrives moments later and casually asks the pilot whether he happens to be wearing a parachute. After confirming the answer, she wastes no time and throws him out of the helicopter, making sure he has the parachute attached before doing so. 3 hours later, the group continues traveling toward their destination. Kang asks if they have finally arrived, and Camilla tells him that they are getting close. However, she points out an issue that has developed along the way. They are being pursued, and not by just one enemy. Several groups are tracking them simultaneously. It is not long before the pursuers begin opening fire on them. Poppy laughs at their confidence, commenting that their opponents seem to think they are the only ones carrying firearms. He immediately returns fire and effortlessly eliminates the attackers. In fact, he appears to take a certain amount of enjoyment from the experience. Unfortunately, the assault does not end there. Additional helicopters soon arrive and continue attacking without pause. Kang becomes increasingly nervous and shouts that if things keep escalating at this pace, he may end up being forced to regress yet again. During the intense exchange, a bullet rips straight through Yongsa's suit. Rather than being frightened, she becomes furious because it happens to be the only outfit she owns. Inside one of the enemy helicopters, a man suddenly realizes that Yongsa is nowhere in sight. He wonders where she could have gone, only to discover moments later that she has somehow boarded their aircraft. Meanwhile, Kang hears a strange noise and soon notices Yongsa standing aboard the enemy helicopter. Startled, he calls out and asks what exactly she is doing over there. Others quickly become aware of her presence as well, but before anyone can react properly, one of the men is suddenly yanked downward by a chain. Kang immediately panics and screams that both the boss and the Demon King have fallen. Despite the apparent disaster unfolding around them, Camilla remains remarkably calm. She states that everything is progressing exactly the way she expected. Kang strongly objects, accusing her of being completely unreasonable and pointing out that members of their group keep disappearing one after another. Camilla calmly tells him not to worry and encourages him to trust her judgment. Kang insists that the entire situation is ridiculous, especially now that the helicopter itself has entered a rapid freefall toward the ground. Yet Camilla shows no signs of concern. Instead, she confidently announces that they have already arrived at their destination. In the end, the two of them are standing safely on the ground. When Kang asks whether all of these chaotic events were truly part of her strategy from the beginning, Camilla confidently confirms that everything has unfolded exactly according to her plan. 2 centuries ago, humanity endured immense suffering, caused by a phenomenon known as the dimensional voice. Desperate for salvation, people turned their prayers toward God, pleading for a way to escape their misery. In response to their cries, God granted sacred powers to chosen believers. Those blessed with these divine abilities joined forces to defend mankind, laying the foundation for the organization that would later become known as the Hunter Association. At the same time, another powerful force emerged, the Holy Order, a religious institution whose influence eventually grew so vast that it came to dominate half of the world. The story then shifts to Kang, who is occupied with grueling physical labor. One of the workers nearby comments that Kang must be the newcomer who arrived earlier that day, pointing out how relentlessly he has been working since his arrival. Another person tells him that he should stop for a while and get something to drink. Kang replies that he intends to finish the current load before resting, though inwardly he cannot help but wonder how he ended up in such a situation to begin with. The narrative returns to the present, where members of the Holy Order confront Kang. They demand an explanation for his reckless decision to trespass onto their territory without showing even the slightest fear. Looking around uneasily, Kang insists that there are reasons behind their actions and calls out for Camilla to explain everything. However, he quickly realizes that she has completely disappeared. At that moment, he begins questioning whether his fate was always meant to end with him dying while breaking rocks and digging stones. As he processes the situation, Kang is surprised by the existence of a place like this within the Holy Order. What shocks him even more is the fact that it does not resemble a conventional prison in the slightest. A man nearby proceeds to explain the facility's history. According to him, it was originally established as a Reformation center intended to guide heretics back onto the proper path. Only dangerous criminals from the district and followers of forbidden beliefs were usually brought there. Everything changed, however, when Cardinal Valentino arrived and assumed control. Valentino quickly gained a reputation for being ruthless and merciless. After taking charge, he began demanding enormous donations from the local population. Anyone who failed to provide the amount he wanted, even those who had committed no crime whatsoever, could be arrested without justification and sentenced to forced labor within the facility. Hearing this, Kang finds himself wondering how such blatant injustice could be tolerated. The man tells him not to dwell on it too much. Despite the corruption surrounding the center, there is still a priest who regularly speaks on behalf of the prisoners and oppressed individuals. The man further explains that if Kang follows the priest's example and behaves as an exemplary prisoner, there is a possibility that he may be released earlier than expected. Having shared this advice, the man bids Kang farewell and wishes him good fortune. Not long afterward, one of the Holy Order members approaches and tells Kang to move quickly because preparations for his release need to be completed. A loud bell suddenly echoes throughout the facility, signaling that it is time for the prisoners to eat. An announcement follows, informing everyone that the day's food allocation has been assigned to Block B, causing the inmates to begin moving toward the designated area. As the crowd shifts, Kang contemplates whether he should attempt to escape on his own. At the same time, he wonders where the boss and the Demon King have disappeared to. In the end, he assumes that sooner or later they will arrive to rescue him from this place. Much to Kang's astonishment, he spots Yongsa distributing meals among the prisoners. The sight immediately makes him wonder if she has arrived to rescue them. Later, during the second work shift, Poppy shows up as well and comments that the entire situation feels strangely heartwarming. Kang, however, is in no mood to appreciate the moment. His stomach is growling from hunger, and in a fit of irritation, he tosses away the food he has been given. Unfortunately for him, that decision has immediate consequences. The guards take offense at the waste, especially since the meal contains chicken, and Kang is promptly punished with a harsh beating. Before long, the focus shifts toward the group's efforts to rescue him. Yongsa suddenly asks Kang whether he and Camilla have ended their relationship. Kang immediately reacts with outrage, loudly insisting that he was not the one who ended things. According to him, Camilla was the one who abandoned him, not the other way around. Hearing this, Yongsa states that their priority should be finding Camilla. After all, helping her remains necessary if they intend to claim the reward they were promised. Kang cannot help but question how they are expected to locate someone under the current circumstances. Poppy tells them not to concern themselves with that problem because he has already begun searching. Activating his ability, he concentrates for a moment. Suddenly, his expression changes dramatically, and his eyes widen in surprise. Seeing his reaction, Yongsa immediately asks whether he has managed to locate Camilla. Poppy remains silent, causing both Yongsa and Kang to quietly mutter that they should have expected disappointment from the beginning. Hearing their comments, Poppy angrily points out that he can hear every word they are saying. Despite his annoyance, he confirms that he has indeed discovered something unusual. He explains that he has identified a specific structure within the facility, particularly an area hidden beneath it. What makes the location suspicious is the fact that he cannot scan whatever lies underground. Yongsa turns toward Kang and asks whether he has any idea what the building could be. Kang explains that earlier he witnessed a model prisoner entering that very structure. While he does not know its exact purpose, he distinctly sensed an extremely powerful interference spell surrounding the area. The magical disturbance was so intense that even advanced scanning abilities were unable to penetrate it. After hearing this explanation, Yongsa concludes that the mysterious building is worth investigating. The group begins discussing how to approach it, but before they can take a single step, a priest suddenly appears. He angrily demands to know why they are attempting to leave their assigned work area during working hours. The three immediately freeze where they stand. Kang attempts to explain the situation and asks for a moment to speak, but before he can say anything meaningful, Yongsa and Poppy suddenly grab hold of him. Without hesitation, they accuse him of trying to escape and claim that they were merely attempting to prevent him from running away. Kang is completely stunned by the betrayal and loudly protests, demanding to know what nonsense they are talking about. The priest, however, remains unmoved. In a cold voice, he remarks that if Kang truly attempted to flee, then their friend clearly requires a more thorough form of reformation. As Kang continues to complain, Yongsa quietly leans closer and whispers her real intentions. She explains that the plan is to become model prisoners so they can gain access to the restricted area. For that strategy to succeed, Kang must cooperate and play along. The first stage of their supposed reformation process begins immediately, and it involves receiving a brutal beating. Just as the punishment is about to be carried out, an unfamiliar voice suddenly calls out, instructing everyone to stop and wait. The priest instantly reacts with visible shock upon recognizing the newcomer. The person who has arrived is none other than a bishop of the Holy Order. Maintaining a calm and authoritative demeanor, the bishop orders them to cease what they are doing at once. Kang stares at the man's face and can't shake the feeling that he has encountered it somewhere before. There is something oddly recognizable about him, though he cannot immediately remember where. Nearby, the bewildered priest is still struggling to process everything that has happened and instinctively calls out to the bishop. The moment Kang hears that title, a memory surfaces in his mind. This individual is none other than one of the 10 most powerful figures of the current era, excluding Nemesis. He is one of the legendary 10-dimensional powers and carries the title known as the Scent of Light. Yet the reality before him is difficult to believe. The present bishop is crying uncontrollably. Tears stream down his face as he loudly laments his circumstances, wondering what crime he could possibly have committed to deserve such suffering. He questions why a disaster of this magnitude has befallen him. and complains that he is being treated as if he were no more important than a tiny insect. Hearing this, the priest silently thinks that the bishop is definitely not being treated like a bug at all. At that moment, Youngsa suddenly comments that this must be the person she had heard rumors about. She remembers hearing many stories shortly after arriving at Log B. Among those stories was one claiming that the bishop personally chooses outstanding prisoners and secretly assists them in escaping. Kang quickly asks everyone to hold on for a second. He suggests that perhaps they should first listen to what the bishop has to say. The story then shifts elsewhere. A man confidently steps forward and proudly introduces himself as a rogue who has spent 40 years working in mines. Boasting about his experience, he declares that there is no rock in existence that he cannot break apart. With absolute confidence, he announces that he will destroy the obstacle with a single strike. However, before he can even begin, Poppy suddenly appears and shoves him aside. Acting as though the task belongs to him, Poppy immediately takes charge and starts breaking through the mine himself. Watching from the side, the priest is completely astonished. He cannot help but think that Poppy's performance is incredible. In his eyes, the man looks less like an ordinary prisoner and more like some legendary demon king of mining. As time passes, the priest finds himself wishing that the work shifts would rotate more quickly. One of the prisoners complains bitterly that he feels like he is starving. He grumbles that the miserable slop they have been eating every day has absolutely no flavor. Then, suddenly, everything changes. Their eyes widen in disbelief as they spot chicken. After suffering through endless meals of terrible food, the mere sight of actual chicken leaves them speechless. They stare at it as if it were a treasure sent from heaven itself. Curious, one of the prisoners turns toward Youngsa and asks who she is. With a friendly smile, she introduces herself as Reformation number 104 and tells everyone that she is pleased to meet them. The priests instantly begin looking at her differently. In their minds, she is no longer an ordinary prisoner, she is an angel. More specifically, a chicken angel. At the same time, Poppy receives endless praise as well. Both of them are treated like heroes, while Kang stands nearby, quietly wondering how the situation managed to escalate this far. A day earlier, everyone had asked Kang to explain exactly what a model prisoner was. After hearing his explanation, they mocked him relentlessly. They complained that he had ruined their opportunity and insisted that he should have simply accepted the beating and lost consciousness without causing trouble. Despite their criticism, Kang refuses to give up. He firmly tells them that they still have a chance. According to him, the key is making a positive impression on the very same people who previously tried to smash their heads open like cracked watermelons. Kang then shares information he learned from an elderly prisoner who had recently earned release as a model inmate. According to the old man, the bishop relies heavily on recommendations from the prison guards. Kang also brings up Reformation number 6852 and explains that the selection process involves far more than simply breaking rocks. Prisoners must prove themselves in multiple areas and demonstrate talents beyond physical labor. In essence, the entire system evaluates inmates based on their attitude, abilities, dedication, and personal passions. Because of that, they need to place within the top 6 candidates. Although fear constantly weighs on his mind, Kang understands one thing clearly: failure is not an option. Later that evening, the bishop finally arrives to announce the results. Everyone waits nervously as the final selections are revealed. At last, the bishop declares that prisoner number 1515 has secured the 6th and final position among the model prisoners. With those words, the selection process officially comes to an end. The announcement leaves Kang overwhelmed. He realizes that he has finally succeeded. All of his hard work has paid off. Yet despite his victory, another concern quickly enters his mind. Where are the others? Unable to ignore the question, he approaches someone and asks whether they know what happened to the white-haired woman and the dark-skinned man. The person immediately responds with a question of their own. "Do you mean the chicken angel and the mining king?" Kang nods. The explanation that follows nearly causes him to collapse. Apparently, the mining king ended up attacking another inmate. Meanwhile, the chicken angel became furious after discovering that the food contained no actual chicken, despite its appearance. Believing everyone had been deceived with low-quality ingredients, she ended up poisoning the entire group and creating a major disturbance over the prison's food standards. As punishment, both of them were sent directly to solitary confinement. The news hits Kang like a bolt of lightning. For a moment, he feels as though he is about to suffer a stroke. Even so, he forces himself to remain calm. Deep down, he realizes that the situation has somehow become far worse than he originally imagined. Soon afterward, the bishop congratulates everyone for their efforts and begins leading the selected prisoners through the release procedures. Kang tells himself that none of the other problems matter anymore. If necessary, he will handle everything by himself. Still, one thing continues to bother him. Why are they being escorted underground? Unable to suppress his curiosity any longer, he directly asks the bishop. The bishop simply smiles and says that there is nothing unusual happening. He explains that everyone has worked incredibly hard and that he decided to prepare a small meal to reward them. According to him, once the banquet is finished, the release process will continue immediately afterward. For now, all they need to do is relax and enjoy themselves. His answer leaves everyone both surprised and confused. Nevertheless, the moment they see the food, all doubts disappear. The prisoners rush toward the table and begin eating enthusiastically. Every bite tastes incredible. To them, the meal itself feels like freedom. As everyone happily devours the feast, Kang remains where he is. Something feels wrong. A strange sense of unease continues to linger in the back of his mind. The bishop notices his hesitation. Then, without warning, one prisoner after another begins losing consciousness. Bodies start collapsing around the room. Before Kang can properly react, someone suddenly strikes him and slams him down onto the table. To his shock, the attacker is the bishop himself. Looking down at him, the bishop comments that he went through considerable effort to prepare such an expensive meal. Yet now that effort is being wasted. He then coldly suggests that perhaps the reason is simple. After all, maybe Kang is nothing more than a worthless little bug. While everyone else remains unconscious, the bishop calmly requests that someone make sure the bugs are transported safely. In response, several hooded figures arrive and confirm that the task will be handled. They are members of the Holy Order's rebel faction, known as Shadow. The rebels begin gathering the captives and moving them into prison cells. Although the work is exhausting, they remind themselves that this is the final day of the operation. Since everything is nearly complete, they only need to finish the remaining tasks as quickly as possible. Suddenly, they realize that something feels off. One of their companions has disappeared without anyone noticing. Before they can investigate further, Kang appears high above them. Descending swiftly, he launches a powerful kick that sends several rebels crashing to the ground. As he moves, Kang reflects on the bishop's role in his previous regressions. Among the 10-dimensional powers, the bishop had once been regarded as one of humanity's strongest defenders, a warrior who fought relentlessly against the demon race. However, everything eventually changed. The bishop betrayed humanity and began creating armies of chimeras through the modification of human beings. His ambition was to seize control of the order through all-out war. Although his plans ultimately failed, and he was eventually killed by the Pope, the consequences of his actions were catastrophic. Kang knows this better than anyone. In every timeline where he had been captured by the Order, he died because of the events set into motion by the bishop. Realizing this, he understands exactly how such a massive force of chimeras was gathered. While making his way through the facility, Kang suddenly hears someone desperately calling for help. Following the voice, he discovers a model prisoner locked inside a cell. The imprisoned man urgently begs him to open the door as quickly as possible. Kang begins searching through the keys, assuring the man that he only needs a moment to find the correct one. The prisoner continues shouting in panic, warning him that thing will arrive soon. Kang responds that he has already dealt with the priest and is confident everything is under control. After a brief search, he finally finds the correct key and unlocks the cell. However, at that exact moment, he notices a terrifying giant creature standing behind him. Without hesitation, he rushes into the cell and slams the door shut, trapping himself inside alongside the prisoner. The man immediately concludes that this outcome is actually fortunate. Since they are both trapped inside, at least they will not become the monster's next meal. He points out that Kang still has the keys and assumes the creature looks too empty-headed to figure out how to enter. Unfortunately, that assumption proves completely wrong. The monster does not appear stupid in the slightest. Moments later, it simply tears open the prison bars through sheer physical strength. Watching the bars bend apart, Kang panics. He loudly complains that he completely failed to consider the creature's overwhelming strength. As the monster begins advancing toward them, he desperately tells the prisoner to stop pushing against him. Just then, another voice suddenly echoes through the area. Someone arrives and confidently declares that everything is proceeding exactly according to plan. The moment Kang hears those words, he immediately recognizes the familiar cliché. It is Camilla. Without wasting time, Camilla activates the dragon suit and charges directly at the monster. She delivers a powerful strike, only to realize that the creature withstands the attack with surprising ease. Its durability is far greater than she initially expected. Recognizing that her first approach has failed, she immediately transitions to her next strategy. Drawing upon her strongest technique, she unleashes the ultimate water breath. A tremendous torrent erupts forward and crashes into the creature with devastating force. Watching the attack unfold, Kang realizes that this is no ordinary display of power. After the dust settles, Camilla confidently announces that the threat has been eliminated. The scene then shifts to Kang, questioning where exactly she has been this entire time. Camilla explains that thanks to the opportunity Kang provided earlier, she successfully infiltrated the facility. From there, she managed to enter the Cardinal's office and obtain a collection of internal documents. Through those records, she uncovered the truth that the bishop is the leader of the rebel faction operating within the order. Kang immediately connects the information together. The bishop's ultimate objective is the assassination of the Pope and the seizure of control over the entire order. To achieve that goal, he has been cultivating chimeras by combining humans with monsters. Camilla confirms that his understanding is correct. Internally, however, she cannot help thinking that the regressor brat is becoming increasingly cocky. Unfortunately for her, Kang can practically sense her attitude and points out that he can hear her thoughts. Camilla responds by criticizing him for withholding information. Had he shared everything from the beginning, they could have avoided a great deal of unnecessary trouble. Kang defends himself by explaining that he only remembered the details after seeing the bishop in person. Camilla ultimately decides that the important thing is the information itself. Thanks to the documents they recovered, they have obtained approximate location data regarding the association president. However, another issue immediately comes to mind. Kang suddenly wonders where the other two members of their group are. Realizing this, he remarks that they need to find those two as quickly as possible. More than anything, he sincerely hopes they have not caused any problems. Naturally, the story immediately cuts to prove the exact opposite. One of the guards is currently wandering through the facility, confused by the strange situation around him. He notices that several guards have somehow become prisoners themselves, locked inside the very cells they were supposed to oversee. Completely baffled, he wonders who could possibly be responsible for such a ridiculous scene. Then he hears an unusual sound. The noise echoes through the corridor, causing him to stop and cautiously look around. As he investigates further, he discovers yet another guard being tied up and thrown into a prison cell. At this point, he can hardly believe what he is seeing. With so much chaos unfolding around him, he begins wondering where those two troublesome individuals have gone. The answer is revealed almost immediately. High above the unfortunate guard, hidden from his sight, both Yangsa and the Demon King are perched overhead, silently observing their next victim. Kang notices something unsettling almost immediately. Every person in the area looks exactly the same. Before he can dwell on it any further, Camilla warns him to stay alert. Without hesitation, she charges forward to confront the strange figures, creating an opening and directing Kang toward the back door. Trusting her judgment, he immediately dashes in that direction. As he runs, however, a troubling realization dawns on him. Grinding his teeth in frustration, he finally understands why nobody had been assigned to guard the rear exit. The reason becomes painfully obvious the moment he sees the countless monsters gathered there. The path is practically blocked by terrifying creatures. Convinced that they are completely doomed, Kang calls out his concern. Camilla, however, remains surprisingly calm. Refusing to admit defeat, she insists that there is still a way out. Before he can question her confidence, she places something on his back. Kang stares at the object in confusion, wondering whether it is some kind of magical barrier or protective equipment. To his astonishment, Camilla's so-called special emergency gear turns out to be a squishy dinosaur egg. She explains that it is their final contingency plan and tells him to prepare himself for what is about to happen. The warning only leaves him more alarmed. He demands to know exactly what she is planning, but Camilla simply reveals that they are going to take a shortcut. The next instant, she launches him through the air. Everything happens so quickly that Kang barely has time to react. When he finally regains his footing and stands up, he is utterly stunned. Against all odds, they are still alive. Floating effortlessly nearby, Camilla asks whether he is unharmed. She expresses relief upon seeing that he survived the ordeal, which immediately draws Kang's attention to an entirely different matter. He is far more shocked by the fact that she is flying. Camilla appears genuinely puzzled by his surprise. To her, it is common knowledge that dinosaurs can fly. The creature carrying her is, after all, a pterodactyl. Setting that matter aside, she explains that they have successfully reached their destination. They are now on the third basement level, specifically within a secret passageway. According to her, the convocation chamber is located directly beside the rear entrance. Following simple logic, the room they need to investigate should be right ahead. When they finally enter, Kang cannot help feeling disappointed. The room is far more ordinary than he had expected. Instead of hidden laboratories or horrifying human experiments, It appears to be nothing more than a normal chamber. Camilla carefully surveys the surroundings and concludes that the association president had definitely been here. The belongings scattered around the room clearly belonged to him. While examining the area, Kang suddenly notices something unusual. The seal displayed throughout the room is not merely the emblem of the Grimaldi family. As he studies it more closely, a chilling realization strikes him. His expression immediately darkens. Turning toward Camilla, he warns her that the room is extremely dangerous. She instantly demands an explanation. Kang reveals the truth. This is not just any room. It is the bishop's personal chamber. Before they can react further, the sound of approaching footsteps echoes through the corridor. Kang's face immediately turns pale. The bishop enters the room, accompanied by one of his subordinates. Irritated, he remarks that 2 prisoners are currently causing chaos on the surface. His subordinate confirms the report without hesitation. The bishop clicks his tongue in annoyance. Already overwhelmed with his experiments, he finds it infuriating that a pair of insignificant rats have chosen this moment to create trouble. Meanwhile, Kang and Camilla desperately conceal themselves inside a locker. Neither of them had expected the bishop to return so suddenly. The bishop coldly comments that the prisoners should have been captured already. In his opinion, they ought to have been transformed into chimeras or torn apart limb by limb. Hearing those words from only a short distance away, Kang can do nothing except silently pray. Over and over, he begs for the bishop to leave as quickly as possible. Then disaster nearly strikes. A single drop of sweat falls. The tiny sound seems deafening in the suffocating silence. At that exact moment, the bishop begins moving toward the locker door. Kang's heart nearly stops. He frantically wonders what they are supposed to do now. However, when the bishop finally opens the locker, he finds nothing suspicious at all. Only his clothes are hanging inside. Seemingly satisfied, he turns his attention elsewhere and asks his subordinate whether all preparations have been completed. The subordinate respectfully confirms that every preparation necessary for activating the angel has already been finished. Upon hearing this, the bishop closes the locker and declares that it is time for them to proceed to the room of heaven. Moments later, both men leave. Only after their footsteps completely disappear does the tension finally begin to ease. Kang and Camilla crawl out of the locker, both looking utterly exhausted. They genuinely believed they were about to suffocate to death. Kang remains visibly shaken from the close call and cautiously asks whether the bishop has truly left. Camilla listens carefully before concluding that, since they can no longer hear anything, it appears that he has indeed gone. Yet another mystery immediately captures her attention. She begins wondering about the angel the bishop mentioned. Whatever it is, it certainly does not sound like the winged heavenly beings described by the church. Kang quietly agrees. That supposed winged angel is nothing more than a myth. Curious, Camilla wonders whether such a creature has ever existed at all. Kang firmly states that it has not. The true problem, he explains, is that they are attempting to create something that has never existed in the first place. He then reveals a dark piece of history. The Grimaldi family, one of the 3 sacred bloodlines responsible for founding the church, eventually became consumed by arrogance. Their influence and authority grew so vast that they believed their power would endure forever. Over time, corruption spread through every corner of their family. Convinced that nobody possessed the authority to judge them, they continued down an increasingly dangerous path. Then came the Bloody Purge. A pope of that era declared that the family should have known when to stop long before reaching such extremes. The bishop is one of the few survivors of that devastating purge. Having endured the destruction of everything he once knew, he emerged from the tragedy with only a single purpose remaining. From that day onward, he dedicated his entire existence to revenge. Every decision, every action, and every year of his life has been devoted to that obsession alone. He finds the chimera creation method hidden within his family's forbidden library and, through it, creates one of the church's greatest taboos, an angel. However, the creation remains incomplete. To fully operate the angel, an enormous amount of magical power is required, an amount that is nearly infinite. Something is clearly wrong. Obtaining magical power that approaches infinity is never an easy task. There is only one individual Kang can think of who possesses such overwhelming power, the Demon King. The thought immediately makes him wonder where exactly they are planning to obtain such a tremendous source of magic. At that very moment, Kang is about to be struck by a chimera's attack when Camilla suddenly rushes in and saves him. Confused, he questions what is happening. Camilla quickly explains that they are completely surrounded by chimeras. It appears their enemies had already been aware of their presence from the very beginning. The scene then shifts to the bishop, who lets out a quiet snicker. One of his subordinates notices and asks whether something is wrong. The bishop calmly replies that nothing is wrong at all. He is merely curious about the expressions currently on his guests' faces as they struggle inside the trap prepared for them. More importantly, the time to accomplish their great cause is finally within reach. It becomes apparent that they have received assistance from someone outside their organization. Earlier, a knock had suddenly sounded at the door. The bishop had wondered who could possibly be visiting at such a time. When he opened the door, he was greeted by an unexpected figure, the god himself. The visitor cheerfully announces that he has come bearing good news. The bishop states that he has no idea how the stranger managed to enter the area, but before he can continue speaking, the god casually mentions the angel. He reveals that he is aware of the difficulties surrounding the angel's completion. Instantly, the bishop draws his sword and presses it against the visitor, demanding to know exactly what he is. The god merely responds that such details are not truly important at the moment. What matters is that he possesses a solution to the bishop's problem. He then asks whether the bishop would be interested in hearing it. Back in the present, the bishop reflects on the encounter. Although the visitor's intentions seem highly suspicious, he has little choice but to proceed. Turning to his subordinate, he declares that they must end everything quickly and head to the room of heaven. The scene then shifts to Yongsa, who is speaking to a terrified individual. She instructs him to look carefully and asks whether this place is truly the room of heaven. The man nervously confirms that it is indeed the correct location and desperately begs her to spare his life. As Yongsa surveys the area, she is astonished by the sight before her. Countless expensive magic stones are piled throughout the room. 1 hour earlier, the Demon King stands before a winged man and wonders whether he is incapable of speaking. He also questions why the man's eyes remain unnaturally wide open. At that moment, Yongsa notices movement behind the Demon King. She immediately points it out as something begins emerging from the shadows toward them. A sense of alarm fills her mind. Without hesitation, she retreats several steps backward. The Demon King notices her reaction and wonders whether she is concerned about her former colleague. Yongsa immediately dismisses the idea. Her concern has nothing to do with friendship. If he dies, they will never recover the money owed to them. The Demon King assures her that an attack of this level will not be enough to kill him. After thinking about it, Yongsa realizes that he is probably right. The man certainly does not seem like someone who would die easily. Soon they notice Joseph charging toward them with everything he has. Observing him closely, Yongsa remarks that something about Joseph feels different. The Demon King agrees. To him, it appears as though Joseph is being controlled by someone else. Yongsa doubts that words alone will be enough to stop him. In that case, there is only one option left. They will have to fight. Joseph launches his attack with full force. However, the moment he strikes, he realizes that both of his targets have completely vanished. To his shock, Yongsa suddenly appears directly behind him. Without wasting a second, she delivers a powerful blow that sends him flying through the air. Joseph is hurled away as she confidently declares that if they continue hitting him long enough, he will eventually stop. The scene then returns to the bishop. A distant sound suddenly reaches his ears, causing him to pause. Confused, he wonders what the noise could be. One of the guards admits that he is not certain either. To him, it sounds as though cannonballs are continuously exploding somewhere nearby. Moments later, the bishop notices something unusual and stares toward the source of the disturbance. He begins wondering what exactly he is looking at. Then, in an instant, the answer bursts through the wall. Yongsa, the Demon King, and Joseph come crashing out from the shattered structure. The bishop immediately recognizes the figure accompanying them and shouts in shock that it is an angel. At the same time, one of the guards steps forward and orders the newcomers to stop where they are. Filled with confusion and alarm, he demands to know who these people are. Yongsa entrusts the Demon King with handling the enemies, and he calmly replies that he had already intended to do exactly that. Without wasting another moment, he dashes straight toward the bishop. Nearby, one of the guards notices his approach and urgently shouts that the enemy is heading in their direction. As the Demon King closes the distance, the bishop watches him with confusion. Unable to understand who this sudden intruder is, he wonders whether the man might be someone sent by the association. In response, the Demon King casually remarks that he actually comes from a chicken restaurant. The bishop is left completely baffled by the absurd statement and questions whether it is some kind of joke. Drawing his sword, he declares that the Demon King is nothing more than an insignificant insect. However, before the blade can even reach him, the Demon King effortlessly evades the attack. The bishop acknowledges that anyone capable of reaching this place must possess some degree of skill, yet he dismisses it as meaningless. To him, the Demon King's life is no different from that of a bug, and he intends to extinguish it with his special ability known as the Baptism of Salvation. The Demon King lets out a faint snicker and wonders whether this is supposed to be some form of divine power. Even if it truly is divine magic, he finds it laughably weak, comparing it to nothing more than a gentle breeze. He remarks that such a feeble ability would not even serve as a proper distraction. Yet in the next instant, he senses something unusual. The surroundings suddenly change. Without warning, both of them find themselves standing within an entirely different space. The bishop smirks as he asks whether this place feels familiar. He explains that the baptism of salvation was originally a basic form of divine magic meant to comfort believers by showing them precious memories. However, he has altered the spell and learned to use it differently. Instead of comforting people, it drags forth their most horrifying memories and forces them to relive them. That twisted version of the technique has become his personal ability. While it still bears the name Baptism of Salvation, he believes a more fitting description would be a nightmare. Confident in his victory, he tells the Demon King to drown within his own nightmare. As the illusion unfolds, the Demon King notices that everyone is there. The bishop is immediately confused. Looking at the scene before him, he questions whether this truly represents the Demon King's trauma. What appears before him is not some battlefield or horrifying monster, but rather a cult-like gathering. He further notes that individuals who are not directly involved in the traumatic memory should not be able to hear what is happening within it. That fact disappoints him slightly, as he had hoped to hear the pathetic details of the Demon King's suffering. To his astonishment, however, the people within the memory begin speaking clearly. One after another, they beg the Demon King to accept their sins. Among them, a grieving woman cries out that her newborn child was trampled beneath military boots before ever seeing the light of day. Consumed by sorrow and rage, she speaks of taking revenge upon humanity for what was done to them. The bishop is utterly bewildered. He cannot understand how this is possible. With trauma this severe, the target should already be losing their sanity. The illusion should have overwhelmed the Demon King's mind completely. Yet not only is the Demon King remaining stable, but the bishop himself can hear every word with perfect clarity. As he continues observing, unease begins to creep into his heart. What exactly is this thing standing before him? Suddenly, one of the cult members breaks down in tears and addresses the figure before them as the Demon Lord. The bishop's eyes widen. An impossible thought enters his mind. Could this man truly be the Demon King? The possibility seems absurd, yet the evidence before him becomes harder and harder to deny. The Demon King calmly confirms it. Yes, he truly is the Demon King, the King of Curses. The bishop's expression darkens. He recalls that, on rare occasions, victims trapped within this technique fall into a coma and regress to their former selves. If that is what is happening now, then the Demon King must be killed immediately before the transformation progresses any further. At that moment, the Demon King quietly murmurs that he finally remembers. That is how it was. He is the Demon King, the King of Curses. And with that realization, he invokes his first curse, Agni. Meanwhile, the scene shifts elsewhere. Yongsa remains locked in battle against Joseph. As their clash continues, she confidently remarks that a little more punishment should be enough to finish him off. Finding the entire situation increasingly irritating, she wonders why he cannot simply collapse already, instead of stubbornly continuing to fight. She questions whether he truly intends to keep going no matter what. Then, suddenly, a powerful explosion echoes through the area. The unexpected blast immediately catches her attention. Yongsa turns toward the source of the sound, wondering what has happened over there. At the same moment, Joseph's eyes widen dramatically. Without saying another word, he abruptly breaks away.